What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome to another episode of the Black Sheep Perspective. I believe this is episode 30. I'm very, very happy to have gotten this far. I've been in this now over a year. We just crossed the threshold of 800 plus subscribers. I think we'll be at 1,000 within another month or two. I appreciate everybody out there paying attention, watching, listening through the audio or watching on YouTube. Your support goes a long way. By the way, before we get into it, if you haven't done it already, please take the time to like, subscribe, or maybe even send this link to a friend. I have an amazing guest here today. And as of lately, I've been questioning a lot about my newfound passion about doing this podcast and what it does for me. And I was literally just telling this young lady off camera before we started the podcast that I really am now intrigued by meeting so many different people I've never met, people who do things that I've never even heard of or experienced. And I love to get info on it, because I think I'm as average Joe as anybody else. I mean, I'm pretty fucking special, but, I want to know things, and I think I speak for the norm when a lot of people want to know things. And I literally said earlier, like I was telling you about a conversation with my friend, who the fuck knows a stunt woman? Who can say they know a stunt woman? Well, I got one here today. This is finally the first stunt woman that I've ever met and now officially know. And I'm just very happy that she came to the show. Thanks to a good friend of ours, Lou. We'll get back to him. Yessenia, how do you say your last name?
Cossio.
And that's funny because I was thinking it was Cossio. I thought you had an Italian back with this Cossio.
Well, it is. It is Italian.
And that is how it's pronounced? Cossio is the Italian way of saying it?
It's different because I think over in Italy, it's spelled with one S. So it's Cossio.
That's what I was thinking.
Once it went to the U.S., I don't know how that transition happened, and now it's spelled with two
These
S's.
damn Latin parents just be switching names up like it's nobody's business.
Always. They're like, we're going to put another S in there, and it's going to be Cossio.
Yeah. Oh, like, do you know who did that? Was it your mom, your dad, or?
No, it was none of them. It's been passed down, and whoever did it,
It's generations now.
It's just generations, yeah.
Okay. So, but on that tip, where is your ethnicity from?
Cuban.
Cuban.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Miami. And my parents are Cuban, and they came out here when they were 18. They're now like 50-something years old. They came during in Mariel.
Wow, yeah. Awesome. So I don't know who knows about that except Cubans, but for those of you guys who don't know, when she says they came into Mariel, she's talking about the infamous, it's famous and infamous, when the Cubans defected, when Fidel, unfortunately the way he said it, when Fidel flushed the streets of Cuba, flushed everybody out of Cuba that he didn't want there. Mm-hmm. And he said, you guys can get the fuck up out of here and take your ass to America. Forced them on a boat. And it was a very, very big deal for Cubans who came over here and became Cuban Americans. And one big deal while we're here right now, especially in Miami. So props to them. Have they Americanized yet, or are they still in that halfway?
And my dad's trying. He knows all the bad words.
Tries.
He knows all the bad words.
It's been 30-something years.
He's got to be able to fight with the credit card companies,
Yeah.
And my mom, as soon as she got here, she did try to get her stuff together, and she started learning English and all that. She's still not Americanized, but she speaks English, Okay. But she still got the Cubanness in her,
So, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, you are a stunt woman. I know you do a lot more. Is it safe to say that most of the times when you are a stunt person, you're probably also an actor or actress?
Definitely.
Yes.
Now, there's a lot of stunt performers that don't want to do acting.
Right, and I saw that in the special I told you about.
Yeah. You have the stunt performers and you have the stunt actors. So the stunt actors love to be on camera. And you usually see them get certain roles, like, acting roles where they get to beat your butt too, kind of like Jackie Chan. Mm-hmm. And then you get the stunt performers, which don't want to be on camera. And they're just kind of like, no, like, I don't want my face to be shown. I just want to do the background, badass stuff, and that's it. So you have the two different type. And I definitely consider myself more of a stunt actor because I love camera. I actually started off as an actor, and then I got into stunts.
So take us back to when you got into acting then before you got into the stunts. What was it that made you want to act, and how early did it start?
Oh, man. Can I take you way
further
back
than
that
so
it could all make sense?
Yeah.
Great. So I actually started off since I was young singing. That's what I wanted to do as a performer.
This girl does it all. Goddamn. Shit.
I just wanted to be a singer, and since I was like 9 years old, my mom had me in like singing classes and stuff like that, and I performed in like local church and small events and stuff like that in school. But then she didn't have money. During that time, my dad was actually locked up. He was, in jail. So she didn't have the funds to, support what I wanted and my young career, during my childhood. So unfortunately, I couldn't keep taking the classes. I sang a lot while I was at home, but I wasn't, it was hard for me to find the motivation a lot of times just because dad wasn't around anymore. It's kind of like, hey, you see your dad, and then for like 5-6 years, you don't see him anymore. He just disappears. And it's kind of like, where's dad? So, as a kid growing up and having dreams of, wanting to perform and all that, it kind of just goes out the window. And you no longer want to follow your dreams or what you want to do. Now you're confused. And, so I just kind of started getting involved with other things, and such as a lot of fights. I used to fight a lot in school.
So are you openly acknowledging that a lot of this stems from your dad disappearing and not being there for a minute? Nothing to take away from your mom, but just that played a role.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it played a huge role. I never picked on anyone. It was more, I was the bully's bully. And, here I am, this little small girl that I didn't even care if I got my butt kicked. Like, I was more like, I'm all for it, like, let's go. I just wanted to feel some kind of pain. And I don't know if that came from, like, maybe not having maybe the love of a father or something was missing. So while I was, like, middle school and high school, I got into a lot of fights, suspended a lot of times. And then after that, I had a teacher come up to me and she's like, look, I see a lot of potential in you. You're a smart kid. I could tell that you're very caring, but you're just going down the wrong route. So she kind of like, she made me think a lot after that. And she helped me out just with even those few words, because I kind of realized, man, this really isn't who I am. And although, I'm the bully's bully, I'm not just going around bullying people. I'm kicking people's butt that deserve to be kicked. I shouldn't be getting into fights, because like I would even get into fights outside of Dolphin Mall here in Miami. I remember throwing some girl down the escalators, guys. I don't know what happened. I just ran away.
Are you sure that the law of time, what is it?
I don't know. I was a little girl, man.
You can't get arrested still, right?
No, I'm good. No, she was fine, but it was.
Yessenia, that's evil as fuck. You threw somebody downstairs, man.
No, but she came up to me like all crazy. So I was like, man, I gotta defend myself. Because that's the other thing. I was trying to defend.
What high school did you go to?
Braddock.
The fuck? Braddock doesn't brew people like you.
Oh, man. Well, maybe not now, but
that's true, right?
But yeah, my friends would get bullied a lot, and I would always feel the need of having to protect them. But then it got to a point where I was kind of like, hey, man, like, defend yourself. She just said something. Then they'll just back off, and they'll be like, oh, what's up with you? So then now I'll have to get in a fight, and I'm like, you know what? This ends right here because ain't nobody defending me, and I'm getting in all these fights. But anyways, as I got older, I started working like at 17 because I wanted to have my own car and stuff like that. And started working for Sears telemarketing out like in Doral. And I remember trying to get my first job was like really difficult because my first interview, they were like, hey, man, go get a job at McDonald's or something, get yourself some experience, and then come back.
Right.
And then 3 months in, I'm like, when can I apply again? They're like, just come back like 3 months later and reapply. I came back exactly 3 months later, wrote an agenda, come back on this day, and I showed up again, and I'm like, yeah, I'm here for my second interview. And they're like, oh, okay, you actually came back. I'm like, yeah, I really want this job. And they're like, okay, cool, let's interview you again. So I had a different person interview me. And then same thing. They said, look, you seem like a really nice girl and everything, but you just don't have the experience we need, unfortunately. Did you ever get that job at McDonald's? I'm like, I didn't come here to flip burgers, man. Like, right. I want a real job. And they're like, yeah, but you got to get experience somewhere, maybe a grocery store or something. I'm like, nope, I'm going to work here. And they're like, come back in 3 months. And I'm like, oh, damn it. I'm like, all right. So I wrote it again 3 months later. And I'm like, I was just persistent. And that's one thing about me. And on the third try, I met up with Miriam. Her name was Miriam. I didn't know that she was the general manager at that time. And she sat down with me. I'm just thinking this is just another person interviewing me. Mm-hmm. And she's like, hey, so, I see it's your third time interviewing. And I'm like, yeah, I really want this job. And she's like, you know what? You got the job. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you're not even going to interview me? And she's like, no, you show persistence is something we need as a telemarketer.
There you go.
And then I'm like, oh, man. And she said, but you know what? I'm not going to give you a job as a telemarketer. I'm actually going to give you a job as a technical support specialist. So you're going to actually monitor the telemarketers. I'm like, all right. So my job started there. Was in the corporate world for like 7-8 years.
with Sears for that long?
With Sears, I was there for 3 years. Then I got promoted to human resource, worked there for like a year and a half. Then from there, I went off to work for like 6 months, a medical billing company. That didn't work out really well, medical billing, man.
This is almost hard to listen to because you're so full of energy and bouncing off walls nowadays that you did completely the opposite back then.
Oh, the total opposite.
Sat around and watched and checked.
Man, my life, anybody listening to this right now, you guys could probably, identify yourself with it. I was just going from like different jobs to jobs. I couldn't find love for any of the things that I was doing. I knew deep inside what I wanted to do, but it was kind of like shut down at an early age because of the trauma that I went through. And here I am trying to find myself, trying to find the money to cover my bills, but still try to find the money to save to basically have my career.
And then in the back of your mind, you're still thinking about singing, or were you thinking a little bit more?
I wanted to be a performer. At that time, I wasn't even thinking about singing anymore. I'm just thinking, I just want to perform. Like, there's something in me that I can't sleep. I feel like I'm itching all the time. I have bad anxiety. And also, I was also dealing with clinical anxiety disorder. Since I was like 9 years old, like till like maybe like 21, 22, I was diagnosed with clinical anxiety disorder. And it was just, and I think probably that's where all that other stuff came from, like the fighting and just all those things. And basically dealing with that and having to find a job that you were happy with and going from job to job, trying to find the funds to save money for my career, for my family too, because during that time we were living in efficiency, 3 of us, my parents and I, and my brother was living with my grandma, and I was literally sleeping in the kitchen. Like, I was sleeping in the kitchen. I had like a little bunk bed that I opened and closed, and then my parents were like in the room, like right next to me.
Yeah,
and
I know efficiencies. Wow.
Yeah, no, the efficiency was literally like the size of like, it was a square. It was, like maybe 300 square feet. I don't know, it's so small. And
you probably aren't far off. It was probably about 300 square feet.
Yeah, it was super small.
That's what an efficiency would rough around.
And it was difficult to stay concentrated, motivated, because everything was going against you. You were working this job you hated. You were living somewhere that you hated. I didn't have my own room till I was probably like 22, 23.
Damn.
And here I am struggling. And during all that time, I was just working 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. in this job I hated just to save money to have my first car to be able to move forward. Then afterwards, I started working for Best Buy. And it was hard. It was hard to start working there because I felt that I had a great position in human resource where I was getting paid pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, I got to take a hit and I got to get a part-time job if I want to move up with my career. And I got to probably risk losing my car, losing everything I have, which I need my car to be able to do everything else I want, but I'm not going to be able to afford it. So I had to risk losing everything and not know if I'm going to have enough money for my car next month so that maybe I could afford my acting classes. Because now I could afford my acting classes, but now I can afford my car. So I had to like pick and choose. And I worked 3 years in Best Buy. I worked in the computer department. And then after that, I got fired. I got fired for basically a misunderstanding, unfortunately, during that time. And afterwards, I remember just crying every day. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I don't have a job. I don't see myself going back to work.
Right about this time, you're what age? 23, 22?
I'm probably like 23, 22, yeah. Okay. And it was hard because I was working this job at Sears where I was making a good amount of money in the corporate world. Then I had to take a hit and work retail. Like, I never saw myself working like Best Buy, $9 an hour. You know what I mean? Where I was making like 15, 14 an hour in the other job. And I had to take this hit. But then after I took that hit, then I got fired. And then after that, I'm like, oh man, now what? So here I am just in the world, no job, nothing. And then I'm like, I got to pick myself up. I got to figure something out. I just started looking basically into fitness. I started working out a lot. I started going to the gym. I'm like, if I at least could afford $20 a month, you know what I mean? This would help me mentally.
At this time, were you already decently fit or just petite because of your genetics?
No, I actually was not fit. I actually was maybe like 40 pounds bigger than I am now. I was not fit at all. I I didn't grow up being athletic. Maybe the only thing that I used to do a lot back when I was in school was I used to run a lot. I was a good runner.
Yeah, you were chasing people's ass to beat, right? See, that's the running that you did.
All that running helped out in the future
Yeah.
for sure. But yeah, that's the only thing I did. And then I got into fitness. I remember the first time I walked into a regular gym, I was like every other person. I was confused. I didn't know what to expect, what to do. I looked at weights and I'm like, what do you even do? How many do you do? I was embarrassed because people looking at me, and I'm like self-conscious. Like everybody's looking at me. I don't even know where to start. I had like this big ass shirt on and like these pants. I was like completely covered up. Like I didn't want people looking at me, and then I was like, okay, I don't know where to start, but I think hey, the treadmill's safe. That's always a safe place to go. Let's start on the treadmill.
That's what everybody does. It's unreal.
Right?
Everybody.
So I'm like, let's start on the treadmill. So I would just start on the treadmill. Then once I got warmed up, I looked at the weights for a little bit, and then I'm like, okay, I'll pick one up, and then I'll just do what I see someone else doing, and then I'll just do that. And then eventually I got a trainer. And I was like, I need to step up my game because I hate coming to the gym and not know what to do. So I got a trainer. She helped me out. And after that, I got so drowned into just training, regular fitness stuff, that
nothing explosive, just like bodybuilding.
Nothing, just bodybuilding.
Just toning up, making your body look good.
Yeah. It was helping me with my anxiety, with my depression. It was helping me so much. And I got so drowned in it that with time, months would pass by. And little by little, I went from wearing this big shirt and all covered up to now she's starting to wear regular fitness clothes to like crop tops to now, now I'm feeling more confident. And people are even telling me, hey, you look great. Like, have you ever thought about competing? And I'm like, me competing? I'm like, no. I'm like, I can't do that. And they're like, why not? And after they said that, I realized what I just said. I'm like, why did I just say I can't do that? And I'm like, I've never thought about it. And they're like, you have a great physique for that. You should definitely try it out. And then, it kind of stayed in my head, but immediately I told the person, no, I can't do that. And the reason why it stayed in my head and I said no immediately was because I didn't feel as beautiful as the other girls that I saw. And, social media could be so mentally consuming and drowning at times that you see these girls and you're like, man, I can never look like that. And, that's where I was at. I was very unconfident. I didn't feel like I could ever look like any of those girls. And then after a while of training, I was like, you know what? If I could at least compete once and get on stage and be able to say I stood on stage next to other beautiful girls, I've accomplished already something big.
So you went for that? You did that?
I did.
Oh,
I did NPC, National Physique. I was with the National Physique Committee for 2-3 years. I competed in bikini.
More than once then.
I did it twice.
Okay.
The first time I got 16th place. I looked like a skinny cockroach.
Do not say that.
It was horrible. Like I think I did too much cardio, way too much, and I was just completely dehydrated. I was not happy with the way I looked. And it's funny because when I got into fitness, I was like, man, I'm finally gonna probably be happy with the way I look physically, at least, And when I saw myself in the mirror, I cried. The day of the competition, early in the morning, before I went to compete, I looked at myself and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what is wrong with, like, I don't like the way I look.
You know what's wrong with those competitions? And I used to follow them for a long time. Like, who the fuck are the judges? And who is this critique, of what's fit, what's healthy, what's bikini-ish,
Right.
Your hips are too big, your butt's too round. Like, what?
Yeah.
Well, who doesn't want that? But, according to those rules. So there's a lot of dirty politics in that. And I think that I commend people for doing that because when they get into it, they know, hey, you know everything's against you, right? if you're not sleeping with the judge, if you're not, this, that, like it's very difficult.
Yeah.
But you obviously learned it firsthand. So what? And after the first experience, you felt better to go do a second one?
The second one, I wanted to do it my way. So my way meant the first time that I ever did it, the diet was so strict, I couldn't even have fruits. I would just wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning, have some oatmeal, then go train, come back, and it was really strict, my meals, and I was only able to have at that time turkey and sweet potato or chicken and sweet potato, or I couldn't have rice, nothing. It was so damn strict for like 3-4 months, and I lost a lot of muscle, and I was just like skinny, but like, and then with the Protan thing that they put on you, it was too dark. So I'm like, here I am looking like a roach. I'm like, I look horrible. I'm like, I don't like the way I look. So I'm like, man, if I'm gonna do this a second time, I gotta do it my way. I'm gonna make my own bikini. Like, I'm gonna make it my own, and I'm going to definitely, build some muscle. I'm not gonna be so strict with the diet. I just want to be happy with myself. I did it the second time around. I kind of trained myself more this time. I did have a trainer, but more for spotting, not really for, hey, strict diet and all that.
Yeah, okay.
And the second time around, the first time I got 16th place, 16th out of 65 girls, which is not bad, right?
It's not, right.
But then the second time, I got second place.
Wow. Yeah. Big difference.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why I got second place was because I refused. So I bought this bikini that I wanted to wear and make it look like Wonder Woman. And I even got like a band to put like on my head and everything. And I remember wearing it and making it and taking so much time to do it. Like I went to Michael's to get the gems and everything. And then I went to one of these like rocker stores in the mall where you get like this
Hot Topic? No.
Yeah, it was like Hot Topic.
Yeah.
I got the bottom part and then I had somebody tailor it and make it to like fit my body. I went through a mission. Okay. So I'm like, this is a very special like bikini for me. And I went and I wore my bikini and everything. As I'm walking, you could hear the gems just falling down on the stage.
Literally.
I hot glued it. So like the
gems. But they're
falling
on the stage during the competition. Fuck.
It was so funny, but I'm like, whatever, man. This is my shit. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I did this. This is.
Yeah.
I made it with love. They're falling, but they're mine. And I got on stage, and they're like, "Hey, so you have a great chance. I did the morning, and then you have like the night too. That you compete in the morning, and then they make the decision at night. And after I compete in the morning, they're like, you have a really high chance at winning this, but there's only one problem. What you're wearing is fine, like the bikini, but you got to take off your headband." And I'm like, "But I made this headband." And they're like, "Yeah, but it's symbolic, like it's Wonder Woman and the National Physique Committee, like we can't have that because it's a symbolic thing. So you got to take it off because you're going to end up in like magazines, stuff like that, and like, it's copywritten, all that. Like you can't have that."
Because you used the actual WW?
No, it was a star that I made with gems and I just put it on my head. I know. I don't know. But, they had their rules.
Right.
And I go to them. I'm like, okay, remember at that moment, I know it's not a big deal. Maybe some people might have even been like, man, you're stupid for not taking like first over something like that. But for me, it was more important to remember why I even started doing this rather than to give them what the fuck they want. You know what I mean? And that's the way that I've always been. Like, and I'm like, you know what? I came here not to win. I came here for me, and to do things my way, and that's what I'm gonna do. And they're like, "So are you gonna take off the headband?" I'm like, "No, I'm gonna keep it on, and we're gonna get photos like this because I want to be in that Muscle magazine thing, but with photos of me with the thing on."
Right.
And they're like, "Okay, but you're not gonna take first, then, right? Probably that's what's gonna happen." I'm like, "That's fine. I'm good with that. I'll take the L." And they're like, "Okay." So I got second place. But then afterwards, they're like, "Hey, man, like one of the judges came up to me and they're like, so why did you decide not to win? I mean, you could have easily just taken first place, but obviously we couldn't give it to you because of the, there's rules." And I'm like, "Well, what's the name of the person that just won?" And he's like, "Well, what's her name? It's I don't remember." I'm like, "What's my name?" He's like, "Yessenia." I'm like, "That's exactly why." I'm like, "You remember me? That's it." Like, that's all I want. I always just wanted people to remember who I was. And I remember that day, just, like, the swimsuit and everything was so nice and beautiful and, like, memorable that people were, like, literally doing stories of me and taking photos. And, and that's all I wanted at that point.
So did you get scouted from there? Because, we had mentioned my homeboy Yuli earlier. His girlfriend, Ashley, who she's Dana Brooke for WWE Superstar Divas, whatever. Ashley, she got scouted. On a second competition, and that's how her offer came to do WWE. Okay.
No, I never really did get scouted. Only people that scouted me there that day were my grandparents.
Can always trust abuelos.
That's it. They were like, "Hey, mira qué linda." I'm like,
"Oye, tienen que comer, ya, fíjate."
Después de esto, la carreta. We're like, "All right, we'll do it."
Yeah.
No, I never got scouted, but I think doing all that was definitely a journey that was necessary for me, mentally and physically.
Right.
Because during that time of training, like I said earlier, I suffer from clinical anxiety disorder. I remember training and crying because I would get attacks. So while I was training, training were my triggers, and that's why I started doing what I did. So you know how usually you get triggers from disorders, and they tell you stay away from your triggers. Mm-hmm. I felt that the cure to triggers is actually going towards it. You know, if there's something that's triggering it, then you need to basically face it, not run away from it.
Right.
So I wanted to find my cure facing these demons, and that's what I did. And I remember like lifting away and like crying, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like having an attack, and I'm like shaking, and I'm here and just waiting until it just goes away. And that's how my journey was, you know, and it was a difficult one, but I became stronger out of it. You know what I mean? Mentally and physically. After that, I remember I was already taking acting classes during that time. I was affording my acting classes. And I was like, man, I want to find something that has to do with acting, but fitness. You know, that I could still, because fitness is a big part of my life now. And
yeah, at that point you were.
Yeah, and I remember going to this round table meeting kind of for actors out in Davie. I think it's called the Florida Hampton something. I don't remember the name of it. But basically, all the people in production in Miami would meet there. And it would give you an opportunity to, like, stand up and, like, talk about your background, where you're from, what you want to do, what your goals are. And there was, like, about 75 people there. So, you know, anywhere from people from production, director, producers, you know, filmmakers, actors, aspiring people, and people in the business.
Almost like a job fair, but for that specific.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, man, this is an amazing opportunity. And I remember showing up there and being like, okay, you know, yeah, hi, my name is Yessenia Cossio, and I was looking into stunts. Like, I've been watching YouTube videos, if anybody knows, of basically anything that has to do with it, a school, a coordinator, or anyone that could direct me to the right person, please let me know.
What's up, folks? Thank you once again for tuning in to another episode of the Black Sheep Perspective, Season 2, baby. If this happens to be your first time watching or listening, please take a quick second to hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell so that you don't miss another episode. And once again, guys, really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, everyone out there, for all the amazing support. And a big shout out to my man Hector and his entire team over there at Driver Shop USA. If you guys follow me on IG or live in this beautiful city of Miami, you'll be able to catch the dope-ass wrap job that was done to my Chevy Colorado truck. Not only did they wrap the entire truck to protect its original paint job, they then slapped on multiple high-quality logo wraps on all sides, so that I can remind those of you who are looking to tune in to the best new podcast. From boats to motorcycles to automobiles of all kinds, Driver Shop USA is continuously redefining luxury. Now let's get back to the podcast.
So at that point, I was looking for guidance. I was looking for someone to basically head me in the right direction of who to even speak to. And I remember this one person came up to me and he's like, hey, he gave me a phone number and he's like, contact this person. He can probably help you out. You know, he's a stunt coordinator here in Miami. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I remember messaging him, and I reached out, and I'm like, hi, my name is Yessenia Cossio, and I was interested to know if you offer any stunt classes or anything, you know, that I could learn. And he just messaged me back, and he was like, sure. What's your background? Is it martial arts, gymnastics, whatever? He's naming all these things, and I'm like, I get the message back, and I'm like, oh shit!
I got second place.
I got
That's
second
what I can
place
tell you.
at this MPC. And I'm like, oh man, I'm like, all right. Well, I was honest, and I told him, look, all I've ever done was just bodybuilding, and that's about it. And I didn't get a message back, and I was like, oh man. I'm like, all right, well, let's try a second time. I give him like 2 days to, you know, digest. Sometimes, you know, you meet people for the first time and it's kind of like, all right, leave me alone. And I don't like being on top of people.
Yeah.
So I messaged him back like 2 days later. And I'm like, hi, I didn't know if you got my last message, but just in case, here's a photo of me. if you ever feel the need, of needing someone like me, or if you offer the classes, please let me know. I'll love to learn. I send them, at that point, I'm like, what can I send them? I got to send them like one of my like fitness photos to show them that I'm strong. And I send them one of my recent bikini fitness photos. And he immediately messaged me back. And he was like,
bastard. I had to show some skin to get this motherfucking guy to train me. You bastard.
And he was like, hey, can you meet me at like NBC in a little bit, just to see if this is something that you really would like to get into. And I think more his thought process during that time was he was kind of trying to see if you're really somebody that was interested, or just like everyone else texting him, because he gets a lot of
course
messages, for everybody.
But who's going to follow up? Right.
Exactly. And I was like, yeah, definitely. So I met him up, and I remember he's like, okay, there's somebody about to do a stunt. They're going to jump out of basically a door made out of glass. They're going to run out through it. Once you see that happen, let me know if this is something that you would like to get into, because there's a lot of things it's very physical. And I'm like, okay, great. And then once they call action, and this girl just runs out like this door, and like you see plexiglass going all over the place, and I'm just like, I just look at it, and he turns around at me, and then he looks at me, and he's like, is this something you want to get into? And I'm like, fuck yeah. I'm like, let's do this. I'm like, sign me up.
Am I next? You have another glass?
That was literally me. And he was like, okay. Then afterwards, he messaged me, and he was like, hey, can you work on the 3rd? It was, I think, January 3rd, like 7 years ago. And I was like, yeah, definitely. What is it for? He's like, you're getting a shot. I'm like, dope. I'm like, yeah, awesome. I'm like, yeah, my first stunt. I'm like all hyped, and then it was for Telemundo. I went, and I remember, they put me in this nice dress. They put some squibs on me and stuff, like
squibs.
Yeah, squibs are like basically these condom-filled
guys, it's not porn.
No,
Hold
it's
up.
not. It's not.
Just
it's
wait.
Not. So it's funny because there's a lot of little things in the stunt world that you guys don't know about. So basically, the squibs are like these little packs. They usually use condoms just because,
This is hilarious. You keep
because they're highly resistant. Okay.
Yeah.
So and they fill them up with
It's
blood.
not what he said.
But it depends the type you get.
Go.
And you fill them up with blood. And then you put them inside, and then you attach, like the explosive, whatever. Okay. And they basically, every time you see someone like die, or something explodes, whatever, like when somebody gets shot, that's a squib that just popped.
Gotcha.
And he's the one on the other side, like controlling it, and he just presses the button and you go, pff, and you feel it, So that's that dope. Day I was getting shot with a squib, and then I remember meeting this team of parkour guys, guys that do parkour, jumping around obstacles, flipping and stuff.
If you were gonna describe in your best Wikipedia, tell people listening, if they're too lazy to go look it up, what is parkour? I know 100% what it is, but how would you describe it? Because I'm gonna make fun of it and say it in a silly way that might insult you guys.
I got you.
What is parkour to those listening?
You guys have seen The Office?
Everybody has.
All right. Parkour, when they start running around the office,
Lord.
And they're like, all right, I'm going to jump over here and do that. Okay. That's parkour. I mean, maybe not exactly how they did it, but okay. So basically parkour is how quickly you could get from point A to point B, right? In the most efficient, creative way. And this could be in any way. It could be either flipping, jumping, and these are basically the athletes you see videos of that some have a bad reputation, but basically in the parkour community, those are frowned upon because we're not like that.
Well, but for people listening, if I can throw a little bit of extra details in there, it's a very, very high-end, very difficult thing to do because there's a lot of balance involved in it, a lot of core involved in it, grip strength involved in it. Yeah. Knowing where foot placement, hand placement. So it's not like you're just jumping from one fucking wall to another.
No.
Most of you motherfuckers can't even jump a goddamn 6-foot fence. So imagine parkour people, they're doing all this dope ass ninja stuff to get over this. If you see a great scene on TV in a movie and this person, he can run down the straight line, or he can jump off the wall on this garbage can onto this ladder and then climb it up. that is parkour stuff. So she's making it seem a little bit too smooth and easy. It is super difficult, and if you don't know what you're doing, you can get injured so easily. So
yeah, definitely. It's something that there goes a lot into it. There's progressions to get to basically every single move. And the biggest thing is just learning the way your body works, because a lot of people don't even know how to jump. You know, there's ways of properly jumping, of using your energy, your explosiveness. And this is something that you get taught in parkour, which actually I feel is very important, that everybody should know how to climb anything, how to climb a wall, how to come down from a tree, you know, like how to be a kid, basically.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that
yeah, it's
an awesome way of putting it.
Because we forget how to be kids as we get older. But basically, I met a team of professional parkour athletes during that time. And I'm like, man, these guys are monkeys. Like, look at them go. You know, just jumping all over the place, getting shot as they're flipping. And I'm like, oh, man, look at that. And I was like, I came across, I think, the owner of the gym at that time, Miami Free Running Academy. And I'm like, hey, man, like, I would like to come to your gym to learn some stuff. And he's like, sure. And he gave me the address, whatever. I showed up the very next day. And I remember they put, like, a vault box there, you know, like one of those boxes you just jump over to practice and stuff. Okay. And it was so hard for me to even jump over the box. Okay, remember, I'm coming from a bodybuilding background. Okay, I'm used to lifting weight. Okay,
stationary,
static muscle, no agility,
certain path, this whatever.
Exactly, everything is muscled, and you know. So I would not do HIIT workouts because HIIT workouts usually help with your agility. Everything was just very stagnant. So in parkour, everything has to do with agility, you know, with resistance and many things that I never really trained. And I remember trying to do even my first pull-up. I couldn't even do a pull-up. And I remember when they first saw me, they're like, man, you look strong. You should be able to, like, do everything in here. And as they started testing me out, they're like, okay, go ahead and go for a pull-up. I'm like, I've never done this in my life. I'm like, okay. I went for a pull-up. I couldn't even do one. And they're like, looking at me kind of like, are you kidding me right now? I'm like, you just look strong. Yeah. You're just a trophy. Like, you're just a trophy right now.
You one of them.
And they're like, yeah, you're one of them. And then also going for push-ups, like maybe I was maxed out at 5. And I was just like, I was mad at myself, you know? And they're like, okay, jump over this box. I could hardly jump over the box. I could hardly jump onto the box. I'm like, what is wrong with me? And I'm like, okay. And I just saw them go, and they would do everything with so much ease. And I was just like, oh, my God. I'm like, no, I got to work on this. And that's one thing about me. When I suck at something really bad, I don't even care if I hate it. I'm going to become good at it because I can't deal with me sucking at something. Right. At least not that bad. So I got into it. It went from a hobby to a passion to a job to a career.
When you were doing this, I guess, I don't know, training part, beginning level training, you know, were you maintaining a job at the same time?
Yes.
Because it seems like you just did the competition shortly after got into this.
Yeah. During that time, I started doing promotional marketing. So basically promotion, like brand ambassador. Okay. I was like a brand ambassador for like companies, you know, like for Pepsi, Nestle, Costco, like, you know, the people that stand there and like give you samples and, you know, and those jobs actually get paid pretty well. Like I was getting paid like $25 an hour, you know, to give out samples and work for energy drinks and stuff like that. So, you know, those little side jobs kind of helped me during that time.
One of the biggest difficulties of chasing passions, like what you're talking about, me with the podcast, other people with what they're doing is none of that shit is paying until you actually hit it. Yeah. Until you get there. You know, I say it all the time. I don't make a penny on the podcast. Probably won't happen for another year or so. I know you guys get paid, but how often do you get these gigs, you know, because you're still a green thumb. You still haven't learned to fucking jump over certain things, you know, whatever it is. So it's so difficult, especially for MMA guys, too, to balance a regular 9-to-5 or whatever job and still chase his passion, still practice, still have a fucking significant other. You know, right. Don't be a parent because then, oh, God, that's going to be even more difficult. So it's a lot that you have to overcome just to get to this beginning phase. But definitely. So continue on. So then you got that first gig and then.
Yeah, I got that first gig, and after that, I just wanted to learn everything, you know, and I knew at that point, I was like, maybe 24, 25 at that time, and I'm like, Yessenia, you can't think about age, you just gotta hustle, and I'm like, I was put in this world to hustle and to be something, to be someone. So I'm like, I don't care what age I start. Like I gotta do this. And I did. I started hustling. I started training every single day. It was difficult because the more you train, the more prone you are to injury. I got injured. So once you get injured, now you're kind of effed, right? Because now you can't work your promotional job as much. And I was getting little side jobs doing stunts like here and there, you know, like maybe like I'll sit in the back of a motorcycle for the actress that didn't want to, or, you know, stuff like that, like little stunt jobs that didn't really require you doing much, but still those jobs were paying. And now I wasn't able to do those things because, you know, of injuries, of me trying to become better in a sport that would help me with the stunts.
What were some of these injuries?
I had a fractured left ankle where I broke a piece of
huge.
I broke a piece of bone. So basically that put me out for like 3-4 months. And actually during that time, Lewis helped me out a lot during that time to basically get out of my mind and just go out. And I was still even hustling during that time. I remember I would have casting audition notices from my talent agent, and they'll be like, hey, you have an audition tomorrow. And I'm thinking to myself, crap, I can't go. Like, my foot is messed up. And I'm like, you know what? I'm sorry if I waste their time, but I got to do this for me. And he's like, hey, can you show up? I'm like, yeah. And I showed up, and I remember it was for like a commercial. And as soon as this casting director sees me, he's like, what in the world? He's like, what are you doing here? And I remember going through a mission that day because I didn't have, you know, my car and stuff. Like, I had to get a ride. And here I am on crutches and with a boot and, you know, getting to this audition. And then he looked at me, he's like, why are you even here? Like, I mean, you really want to audition like that? Like, they're not going to pick you. And I'm like, look, I got to do this for myself. Like, I got to. Like, I got to get out of the house. Like, I've just been in the bed. I can't even walk to the bathroom. I can't even sit in the toilet. Like, I need to do something. And they're like, okay, fine. And he just put me in front of the camera. And then he's like, all right, just say your part and go for it. And I auditioned for it. I mean, obviously, they didn't call me back. I'm a huge liability, people. But I had to do it for myself. During that time, I was still auditioning. I was still living a regular life as if there was nothing wrong with me. But that helped me mentally become stronger because a lot of people tend to lose themselves during a process of failure.
Yeah.
You know, and
setbacks, any kind of setback, and then people dwell on it. You know, it's like
right. Any setbacks, you either start gaining weight or you just stop doing what you were doing. And I remember my parents during that time, they were totally against parkour. They were,
you know, it's funny. I was gonna rewind this a little bit and ask you about that.
Yeah.
How'd your parents, old school Cuban parents, seeing a female, beautiful young girl like that, attempting, let's keep it real, what seems like guy shit, jock shit, you know, why would you do that? Why would you want to get hurt? This and were they really that against it, or they just sat back like, Nina, we don't approve of this, but or whatever, do what you do?
It was kind of like that. But my mom was more like, oh, okay, ay, Dios mío, ay, qué susto, cuidado. You know, she was more like that.
Yeah.
And my dad was more like, te vas a partir la cabeza. Like, he would talk more like you got to stop. Like, vas a ver, esto pa' qué? ¿Qué tú estás haciendo con esto? Like, what are you doing with your life? Like, you know, you're 25 years old, you're jumping around like a monkey and getting hurt. Like, get a real job. And I'm just like, don't let this get to you. Just keep doing what you're doing.
That's one of the most difficult parts. Your parent, that acceptance, that, man, if you guys would give me a little bit of support instead of,
just
you know,
a little bit, yeah.
I think I can do better with this one. Y'all aren't making it any easier, bro.
Horrible. And even more like, I feel like Cuban parents are just like,
yeah, even, of course, especially since you're a female. Like, it is. It's an old school traditional way, unfortunately, that they bring with them. And they're not willing to accept that just like that.
And more that my dad is un poquito machista, you know what I mean? But that's like a natural thing with a lot of Latinos. So, you know, and then he's like, eso es pa' hombre, don't do this, don't do that, whatever. And I just kept going. You know what? A lot of people at that point, I feel, would become unmotivated, and that actually motivated me. Like, I was just like, because I'm the type of person, you tell me don't do that, I'm going to do it. So, and at that point, the more I would get hurt, the more I would fall in love with what I was doing. Because I was just like, you know what? This was my fault. Like, I wasn't aware, or I'm learning. You know, I'm going to get hurt. It's part of the sport. And it was helping me so much mentally. Again, something that I started because it helped me with my anxiety disorder.
Yeah, that's
because it triggered it. Because the fear of doing certain obstacles, my anxiety, I would start getting attacks and I'll start shaking. It looked almost like I was having mini seizures because they're like, okay, you got to jump this gap. And I'm just like, like you didn't even know where to go, you know? And those obstacles daily would just basically overcoming them, although it was parkour, I would apply that to my own life because if I'm like, if I was able to overcome something like that mentally, I was able to apply that to myself in general in my life, you know, and that helped me so much. And that, I think that's why I became addicted to it, you know, and I competed for WFPF, which is World Federation Parkour Free Running.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And, you know, years later afterwards, they sponsored me, which was an amazing opportunity. But, you know, all that pain led to something else.
I think that's one of the best takeaways before we even get deeper into your career and great highlights and fun moments and all that, that this all stems from a medicinal approach to trying to alleviate what you were going through, which was this, you know, this panic, this anxiety. And that's what got you this far. Trying to overcome that opened up these doors and made you find this newfound passion. I think that's a great thing to tell everybody out there listening or watching, that, you know, shying away from challenging moments a lot of times is not the answer.
Right.
It's not. We've all heard it forever. Face your fears. Face your. It sounds real cliche and fucking, you know, overused. But it's not so much about the fear factor, but accept these challenges that put you in uncomfortable positions, because the benefits that come from it are just, it's just unheard of.
Yeah.
And for you to have done that from the bodybuilding, and it was, you know, you're crying through a workout, you know, to getting this far, I think it's awesome. You know, I hope that inspires people listening. So you get through this, you get through the parents, you finally got some gigs, you get through the broken foot, the ankle.
Yeah.
When is it turn into like, okay, I'm seeing a little bit of promise here. I'm seeing I'm getting more offers, or I got that one job that I didn't think I would get just yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, during that time, there was a few years there that basically it was all just that, you know, just training, getting hurt, recovering, jumping from different promotional job to different promotional job, trying to find myself in my life. And there's a point in time when you're chasing after your career that there's a few years in between that are kind of like you're stagnant. Like you feel like you're not going anywhere. You know, you feel like you've hit like just, you know, the top and you're just going to stay there. And that's the moment that I learned when you need to keep working and work your hardest and not look for so much the progress, but look for the motive. Because sometimes we don't see progress ourselves, although there's always progress and failure and success and everything. But there was 3-4 years there that my life was just there. And things kept happening. Life kept happening, you know, during that time. Like one of my biggest supporters were my grandparents. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
That I had, I know you would think it's like, wow, you know, like they were born in like 1930.
Yeah, there should be more old school until you know. Right,
1930, 1940. Here they are looking at my parkour video. Mira, mira la niña, la viste, mira cómo brinca, mira. Replay it again, a ver, you know, with their little glasses. They can, oh, mira, la viste. Ese fuiste tú. Yeah, that was me. And then they'll repeat the same thing over again. And then a minute later, they're like, mira, enseña el video aquí a la vecina. And then just show everyone, you know, and they were so happy for you. And that was like probably my biggest like motivation, you know, going home after parkour and going up to abuelita and being like, you know, to my grandma and be like, mira, mami, mira mi video. And she's like, a ver lo que hiciste hoy. And she'll take off her glasses and she's like, ay, pero mira. And she's like, ya, mira, ya lo estás haciendo bien. And, you know, she'll hype me up.
Are they still with you? Are they still
No, they're not. So that was actually what I was going to get to.
Oh,
so,
okay, sorry.
After that time, you know, like my grandfather got a stroke. And he actually got a stroke because my grandma's sister, which was also elderly, she fell down. And he was trying to get her. They're already in their 70s. He was trying to get her. And as he was trying to get her, there was nobody else in the home. It was just them. As he was trying to get her, he fell down and he hit his head.
Oh.
Yeah. So
helping your mom's sister.
Helping my grandma's sister.
I'm sorry, your grandma's sister.
Yeah,
right.
and he fell down and he hit his head. And then after they sent her to the hospital and she had a stroke. That's why she fell down. And then now he's in another hospital. Well, no, that same night.
God, what a bad
it
scenario.
was a really bad one.
Fucking
yeah,
hey.
he was eating, and as he was eating, we noticed that he just paused and he just looked at his plate and his head fell into the plate. Like he just felt like it just fell down. And then we're like, did he faint or what happened? And as he came back up, his eyes were open. He was fine, but his So we took him to a hospital, and he had like a red, big blob here, and they said that he had a stroke, and they were like, "Oh man, like what's like? Is he gonna get better?" And they're like, well, "We don't know. Like he's been having a lot of mini strokes. What happened?" And they're like, "Well, he was helping someone out, and he fell down." And he's like, "Yeah." And at his age, we can't do anything about
Right.
it. So hopefully from here he gets better. And I remember that day seeing him and everything, and it seemed like he was getting better and everything. And then the doctors came out, and unfortunately they were just like, "Look, he's not gonna make it. He probably has like 3 to 4 days because this stroke is gonna end him." And we're just like, we're in disbelief. This was something that just happened out of nowhere, and this was also like my parents during that time. Sorry, it's like it's hard to talk about these things.
No, it's okay. And you don't have to go into crazy details.
Yeah. But this were also during that time that my dad was locked up.
Okay.
This was also like my parents during that time.
So it was rough. It was an all around rough situation during that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was rough, and then after doing that time, give me a second.
Take a second. Take a second. Don't even worry about it. Here, I haven't even used this. If you want to use this.
It's fine. All right. So, okay, I'm back. So during that time, he was my dad when my dad wasn't around.
Okay.
And my grandma too, so she was like my biggest supporter, and I think probably what hurt me the most was not having her there to be my cheerleader anymore.
Now, when all this happened, take your time. When all this happened, your grandmother was still of health. I mean, she was okay, right?
Yeah.
So it was. Did she lose her sister first?
Well, she lost her sister first, and then no, I'm sorry, she lost her husband.
Her husband, your grandfather first.
They were together for like 54 years.
Wow.
And he passed away. Then afterwards, I mean, she had been diagnosed with cancer for years. You know what I mean? But
when you lose a partner like that, it's like your whole fucking body
like
just shuts down.
Three years later, she ended up passing away too. She had cancer, but she had metastasis. She had been fighting it for a while.
Metastasis?
Yeah. So basically, like, it's when your whole body gets covered in like cancer cells.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So it like had spreaded. So it had attacked her spine, her back. She hardly could walk, and then afterwards, I remember during that time I was trying to stay focused. Here I am still trying to train and everything, and life is just happening. It just keeps happening. You know what I mean?
Right. Of course.
And then afterwards, she ends up passing away. And then,
how did your mom deal with all this? Was she?
Oh man,
it was tough for her as well. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, we're like as you guys can tell. I mean, I'm a very emotional person, but I'm really close to my family. Okay. And my mom, I mean, her parents were like her babies, her life. You know what I mean? So she got during that time that she became diabetic. Like it was a lot. It was a lot of stress on her. Losing first her dad, and then 3 years later losing her mom. And during that time, I was caretaking for my grandma before she passed away. She had cancer. And I remember, like, she would wake up in the morning and I'll give her, like her breakfast and stuff. And then I'll go train at the gym. And then I'll come back. And I had strictly 1 hour because she would be calling me because she would be scared of being alone and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I had to, like, caretake for her. And everything in my schedule was surrounded basically around her because my mom would be out working. So, I had to stay home and kind of like take care of her. And it's hard when you have to caretake for somebody, and at the same time, you have this career where you're getting auditions, where you need to be so active and you need to be mentally there. You know what I mean? It's hard to be mentally there when things are happening, but at the same time, it makes you stronger. You know what I mean? So, afterwards, I remember after she passed away and everything, I felt like my life was basically doing this for a little bit. And I'm like, you know what, just keep your head up, keep going, keep training. And I honestly don't even know where I got the motivation from. I think I'm just like a self-motivated person. And I'm just like, I always feel hopeful that something better is going to come. And I remember getting this message on Instagram. Somebody reached out and they were like, hey, we want to talk to you about a competition show. And I'm like, okay, cool. And it was for Hexathlon.
The Spanish.
The Spanish TV show. And somebody reached out, and I'm like, okay. I didn't know during that time what it was. And then as they described it, and I'm like, oh, man, I've seen this show on TV. I think I know what they're talking about. And then afterwards, they were like, yeah, we would like to interview you. And I remember, going to my interviews, and I was just, I usually do pretty great at interviews. I will say that because back in the days, my job was interviewing people. Okay. So I was so used to being interviewed, and I know what they want to hear and stuff like that. And I remember going into my interview, it was like 3 people from production from Telemundo, and the other people that were there with me were so intimidated. Like, it was hard for them to, like, talk and stuff like that. And I remember I was just like, boom, 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 and having conversations and super bubbly and stuff. And then I remember they called me a second time for another interview, and same thing. And then one day, this was, I think, in 2018, they were like, hey, we would like for you to come to Telemundo. We need to tell you something. And then I'm like, oh, okay. And I showed up there, and I was like, I had bubble guts, man. I had butterflies all over my stomach, and I'm like, all right. And they were like, they sat me down at a table kind of like this. And then there was a director, the person that I met up with the first time, the big guy. And he sat across from me, and he's like, hey, so how's your day been? And I'm like, I'm great. So what are we here for?
Yeah, stop playing games, bro.
Stop playing games. Like, what are we here for? Like, is it bad news, good news? Like, what's going on? I knew something was up. And he's like, yeah, so we want to welcome you. Like, we would like for you to be a competitor on the TV show. And I'm like, at that point, like, I was in shock. I was like, what? I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, that's insane. And I'm like, wait, that means I'm going to be leaving my family for 4 months. And I'm going to be stranded on an island somewhere in Dominican Republic.
By the way, I heard it's pretty tough.
Oh, it's super tough. That's like a whole nother. But, and they took my phone away, everything, you know, and they don't give you too much food. It was crazy. And I got on that show, and probably one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Really?
Not competitive-wise, more like the life that you had to live.
Did you get far in the show?
I got 2 months in.
How long does it last? Damn, that's a long time.
4 months.
Holy shit.
Yeah. It was actually extremely tough for me because since I had a dietary issue already, I went from basically eating a lot of meat to not eating meat at all. They knew my dietary issue in Telemundo when I first told them. But when I got out there, there's this different company called Akum Media, which those are the production company that basically takes over everything and is responsible for the talent while you are in Dominican Republic.
What's up, folks? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Black Sheep Perspective Season 2. If this happens to be your first time watching or listening, please take a quick second to hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell so that you don't miss another episode. Once again, thank you everyone out there for all the support.
Yeah, so Akum Media is a production basically that takes care of anything going on while you're in Hexathlon. And there's probably maybe only 15 people from Telemundo there, and everyone else was from Akum Media.
So there are subcontracted people who handle.
They're like these people from Turkey. Yeah. And basically when I first, did my contract, I'm like, this is the food that I could eat. You guys have to make sure that in DR there's food for me because DR is an island where, they eat animal, and I don't eat any kind of animal products. And while I was there, it was the most difficult thing ever because I basically was living on lettuce with vinegar, Gatorade, maybe one piece of Nature Valley bar, and some bananas and pineapples. That's it. And they would feed you only in the morning for breakfast and then at 8 p.m. at night. So, and in the morning when they would bring me the food, they would just bring me like maybe some fruits and that's it. Then at night, they would usually bring rice with fish or like rice with meat, or sometimes salad with meat or whatever else, and I would always have to end up eating the alternative, which was either the rice or the lettuce with the vinegar. And I was so malnourished during that time that I would see myself and I didn't even recognize myself. I was like, it's hard for an athlete to compete at such a high level And these courses are long and difficult, and it's like 104, 105 outside. It was so hot. And we were like dehydrated. And sometimes they didn't have water. They'll give us Gatorade. You know, you need water.
Mm.
And
how was I never want to get, invasive in your financial details, but how is the pay, not the exact pay? You don't got to tell me exactly what you get paid. Are they paying you, hey, if you last another week, we'll pay you by the week. If you get voted off or however the competition goes.
They pay you weekly. If you don't last the first week, you don't get paid. It was just more like an adventure and experience.
Okay.
They pay you after the second week. So after the second week is when you get paid, and they'll pay you weekly. So the longer you stay, the better. But honestly, for what you do, you don't even get paid enough.
No.
Not at all. So I mean, it was.
So you get paid decent, but really you're there to try to get your face, try to show your skills, try to get some notoriety.
I'm trying to get out there. This is just a process in my life it's just building my path. That's all it's doing. And within the time of you building your path, something is gonna make you and something will break you. And most of the things that you're gonna do is gonna break you until you get to that point where you just hit that mark, and that's what people know you for. But for that time, it was just a stepping stone. It wasn't something that made me. It did help me a lot mentally. It did make me stronger, being away from family, not having a phone, which actually I didn't realize how good it would feel to not have to wake up and immediately look at my phone and have to check messages and stuff like that. I was just away from the world at that time.
How long ago was this, Yessie?
This was in 2019. So they hired me 2018, and in 2019, January to February.
So right before the pandemic. No, fucking A.
No, the
My
pandemic
years
was
are all
2020.
mixed up.
Yeah.
Fuck. Fuck. This fucking Corona bullshit, bro.
Right.
Jesus.
It has its own stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So over 2 years ago. Okay.
Yeah. But something I forgot to mention. Well, actually, before I get into that, let's finish with the Exathlon. So Exathlon was an amazing experience. It was definitely a learning curve for me, physically and mentally. And basically, while I was there, it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life mentally, because I had to be, like I said, away from family. I was malnourished. I had to compete. Basically 100. You had to be at 100%, although I was at 40 and running on empty. And it was insane because a lot of the times I would have to go out and look for food myself, go over the mountains where we weren't supposed to go, because they have you stay in this little casita kind of like made out of wood, and you sleep like on the floor. They give you like a pillow and like a thin sheet. Sometimes I'll put towels and I'll use my clothes.
Is this a rough version of Survivor Island?
They're from the producers of Survivor.
Okay.
Yeah, so
it's a twist on it.
They wanted you to compete at high level, but not give you anything to work with, basically.
Okay.
So it was hard. I didn't really see. You see, I felt like I would have been okay if at least I would have had some protein.
Right, a little bit better nutrition, period.
That's it. Basically the same nutrition that maybe the other people had, which was not as good, but they were still having protein. But being 2 months without protein and and the carbs you would have, it's like, here are the beans and here is the grease on top of it. It was like a soup of grease with beans, and everything was super greasy because they cooked there with a lot of grease, and I wasn't used to that. So it was a lot of adapting mentally, physically, and I felt like I needed that. That was a necessary.
I was going to agree. I was going to say I think that makes people better, stronger.
1,000%. I don't regret it. Will I go back and do it? No, because I felt like that was a stepping stone. That wasn't something that I needed in my life. And that was a necessary step for me to get to the next thing. And what I did wanted to mention was that before Exathlon, because I forgot, I'm here trying to remember my years, I actually was for years trying to get my SAG card. SAG card is it means the Screen Actors Guild card, and this is basically a card that you're given once you become an actor with enough credits or a stunt performer.
And then so what? So now you can just be in movies? You can't be in a movie without that?
No.
Really?
No. At least not big feature films. or big stuff, like, and get paid, what you should. So when you work non-union without the card, you just work a regular job that they call you for, the money's not promised. You don't know what kind of food they're going to give you. You're not protected by any union. So basically it's okay. I mean, if you didn't get paid, well, you don't have anybody protecting your butt.
SAG is a union.
SAG is a union, and they protect you. Basically, you need to get paid within 2 weeks. If not, the company gets feed. There's so many rules. Basically, you need to be fed, like, I think it's every 6 hours. You should have dinner. And then you should always have snacks, and not just any food. Like, you need to have like good food, like gourmet stuff.
Right. And how was it that what was it that you had to do in order to get this?
Oh, man, that was a whole nother life.
Here you go. You finally got it.
Here I am trying to give you my whole life in like just a few like hours. It's hard. Yeah. So basically, during the beginning of time that I got my first stunt job, that I started first acting and doing short films and stuff like that, I was fighting so hard to get these SAG credits, because the only way to become part of the union is by either having 3 SAG credits or by getting a principal role. A principal role means that you are either a stunt performer in a SAG film or commercial or TV show. So you'll become a principal role, because stunt people are principals, just like actors. Or 3 credits, meaning if you get maybe like a SAG commercial or something like that, or a SAG TV show, but they call you for like a stand-in. Like, you're just standing in for the actor, so that they don't have to be on camera the whole time while they're fixing lights and stuff like that.
And these points literally add up.
Yes. So
it's crazy.
I had to go the long route.
Makes sense, though. I mean, you can't knock that.
I mean,
we got to know you have enough documented experience in order to really consider you for a position.
Exactly. And I mean, I completely agree. It's just not an easy process, because to become SAG, they don't give you SAG-related jobs unless you're SAG. But then how do you become SAG?
Right. What the fuck?
It's like one of those things.
I get it.
And I remember me always being in a fight with my agencies, like, hey, I heard my friend, is doing this SAG commercial, and they're going to get a credit. Like, why did you call me? No, but they're SAG eligible. So that's another thing. When you're eligible, it means that you already have your 3 credits, but you haven't paid SAG to become a member. But you're eligible. So now they call you because you are eligible, although you're not SAG yet. I wasn't eligible because I didn't have the 3 credits. So they wouldn't call me. And I'm like, but how do I get the credits if you don't at least call me? Right. Because you prefer the people
who already
there's a list. Yeah. There's a people first, there's this job, and they first go for the eligible people, and then whatever's left, that's what the non-union people get. And there's where I was, down at the bottom, trying to figure things out and fighting and just like, okay, how do I get this? And I remember fighting for my credits and stuff like that. It took me like 6 years just to get it. It was so hard. And finally, when I got it, I remember I got the card in the mail, and I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, I was so excited. I think this was back in 2017. And I think it was a few months later down the line that I was out in New York. And I was out there because we were coaching some like parkour event out at Brooklyn Zoo, which is one of their parkour facilities. And while I was out there, I had this person reach out to me. His name was Eric Linden. And that man changed my life probably more than he'd ever know. He reached out to me, and he was like, hey, how are you? Just wanted to say hello. And I just thought it was just another stuntman saying hello on your DM and stuff like that. I didn't really give it much attention. I'm like, hey, what's up? And then he's like, oh, are you out here in New York? And I'm like, yeah, I'm here for a little bit. He's like, great. He's like, do you want to swing by and say hello? And here I am thinking, well, it's probably like just another guy trying to like say hello and stuff like that. I didn't really pay it much mind.
I love how you just said that in a real peaceful, nice way. Just another guy trying to say hello. Yeah, okay.
Because you get these, and it's kind of like, if you're thinking this is for a big project, you're not going to get a random DM.
Right,
like,
of course. Yeah,
you're
you would
going
think
to
it'd
get
come
an
more
email.
professional. Yeah, exactly.
Right. But nowadays, social media has changed. You know, the world.
It's informal a little bit now.
It's very informal. And actually, the stunt world is very informal. They could actually be the two. They could either be very, very professional, do emails with a whole list of what they want from you and everything in a phone call, or they'll just send you like an Instagram, you know, like message. And I get this stuntman, and I look at his profile, and it says stuntman. And that's another thing. A lot of the people, when they start coordinating or doing stunt coordinating, they won't list that they're stunt coordinators because of competition and stuff like that, which that's something else to get into later.
Lou told me about that also.
Yeah. So I see his profile on Instagram. I'm like, okay, he's a stuntman. Okay, he just wants to say hello. And I'm like, oh, man, but he wants me to, like, meet up with him. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go say hello. That's another thing I learned, and I learned this from a casting director in Miami. His name is Ed Arenas. And he told me one time, he's like, hey, just show up. And I never really knew what that meant until I just actually started doing that. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you just got to show up, because many times your mind will tell you, why are you going to go? You know, there's nobody there, or you're probably not going to like it. You're probably going to not be good at it.
You're talking yourself out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to show up. And I remember after I already went through my mind, like, I'm not going to go there. Like, why? There's no point. I'm like, just I need to remember, just show up. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to. And I walked, because, you know, New York, you got to walk your way everywhere. And, you know, in Miami, we're not used to walking everywhere. We got cars.
Yeah.
So I walked 30 minutes, and I got to the place. And when I look at the place, at the address, I notice it's a studio. And I walk in there, and I'm, like, looking for him. You know, they had to buzz me in and everything. I'm like, oh, man, this is pretty, like, official. Like, I wonder, you know, what he wants and stuff. And I walk in there, and then I meet him, and it's like a stunt studio with setup, green screen, everything. And I'm like, oh, shit, you know? And then he's like, yeah, so I was thinking about you because you look like an actress. That her name is Floriana Lima. She's an actress for The Punisher, the TV show. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm sorry. I take that back. He said for Netflix, for a TV show on Netflix.
Okay.
He didn't tell me the name of the show yet. And I'm like, for Netflix. I'm like, oh, man. I'm like, okay. And then he showed me a picture of her. He's like, yeah, you look just like her. And I'm like, he's like, you'll be a great double. You're her height, almost the same skin color, everything. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I agree. We look a lot alike, and we really did. And then he's like, how does your schedule look the next few days? And I'm like, oh, I'm totally open. And then he's like, great. And then he messaged me one day, and he's like, hey, you're hired for a stunt with Netflix. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh, man, that's awesome. And
Are you
like,
with SAG at this time? Or
yes,
no?
I was already with SAG.
Okay.
And I'm like, but during all that time, I had just gotten a lot of non-union jobs here in Florida. And the only reason I was out in New York was for a parkour event. But he's like, hey, Netflix job. I'm like, man, this is going to be my first SAG job. And I remember during that time, I had already been following a lot of stunt people. I was already pretty familiarized with who was big in the industry and who wasn't, and who the real badasses were. And I remember meeting up. He's like, hey, he sent a general message through text to like 10 of us. And he's like, meet us up at this address at this time. And when I show up there, I walk in, and I see these stuntmen that I follow on Instagram. And I'm just like, all right, these are pretty badass people. And I tell myself, I'm like, I mean, I don't know how badass I am, but these people are badass.
Yeah.
I feel a little intimidated at that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And then afterwards, we sit in this big, long table, and he comes in, and he's like, all right, guys, so here are the contracts for the job, et cetera, et cetera. Just fill it out and give it back to me. And he leaves the contract there. And I'll tell you something really funny. Years ago, I made a list, because I have a list of things that I want to do. And because I read a lot about The Secret, you know, the book.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm a big believer in the law of attraction. Huge. And I feel like writing.
Likewise.
Yeah, writing things is so important. And I write everything that I want.
That's a great habit.
Yeah. And I write, and I wrote, one day I will work for Marvel Studios.
Wow.
I wrote that.
I like that.
And
yeah, technically it's Punisher. That's right. That is Marvel.
Dude, it was insane. When I got that contract, and I'm reading through it, and as I'm reading the rates and stuff like that.
That was your first big cha-ching moment? You don't gotta break. You don't get the details, but that was the first one.
Here I was. Remember, you're in front of a bunch of badass people. You can't just be like, "Yo, what?" You know, like, hey, you know, you gotta be like, "Oh yeah, whatever, no big deal." So I get this contract, and I'm reading through it, and I'm like, Marvel. I'm like, oh my my God, Marvel. I'm like, what show is this, Marvel? I'm like, oh my God, I'm on a Marvel TV show. And I remember taking photos and then to my mom, I'm like, Mom, look, it's Marvel. And these people around me were just so, like, just passive about everything. You know,
they've
like,
been doing
oh, okay.
yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and they were having their own conversations. And I'm here freaking out inside. And I'm like, I'm going to go to the restroom, guys. I'll be right back. They're like, yeah, whatever. I go to the restroom. I'm like, oh, my fucking God. I'm like, going crazy in the restroom, and I'm like, I got this. I can't believe it. Oh my God, breathe. And I'm like, wait, but these people are badass. What are they gonna have me do this? Marvel. Oh my God, I'm freaking out. And then I come back, fill everything out, give it to them. They're like, all right, guys, so we're gonna start tomorrow with the previs. The previs is basically, the training that you do. Like you kind of go do a follow through.
Walkthroughs.
Yeah, kind of like a walkthrough that you do of what you're gonna be doing on the day. And that walkthrough, you tape it professionally. And you send it to the director to see if this is exactly what his vision's like and what he wants. So we did a previs, and I was driving. I was stunt driving. I'm like, what? I'm like, I'm not even a stunt driver. You know, I've done driving like here in Miami down Chrome. You know, like
that's a little stunnish. You know,
taking rentals and doing stuff, and my dad's truck, that kind of stunt driving. You know what I mean? But never, you know, for like a show or anything like that. And I remember that day, like. He called me in.
Can you imagine? Sorry to cut you off. Can you imagine a stunt coordinator's like, hey, you got any stunt driving skills? And you're like, born and raised in Miami. Oh, that's good enough. That's pretty good. All right, come on, come on board. What? Shit.
If they really know about the people,
exactly. That's what I'm trying to say.
Like,
exactly.
Like you know. And when you're out here, like you be doing some crazy stuff. But anyways, so
they put you in this car. They
put me in this car, in this truck, and I mean, I was pretty comfortable with trucks because I've driven my dad's truck a few times over stuff. But then they were like, okay, all we need you to do is just drive to this position like a few times, and I need you to hit this mark. The same mark, I need you to hit it every single time. And they're very strict on where they want their marks. Why? Because there's cameras. There's people. If you don't hit that same mark a million times, you're going to hit the cameraman. That's going to be an embarrassment and also probably get fired. Right. Or there's probably pedestrians, people like acting like pedestrians, walking in front of you. Yeah. So you have to hit that mark every time. And in film, it's so important that you listen and that the instructions are followed exactly as they're told. And that's actually more important sometimes than your skill. You know, because skill could be taught and adjusted, but not someone that follows instructions.
Right.
So I think he was testing me during that time. And he was kind of trying to see if I'm someone that could pay attention, follow instructions, and hit the same mark every single time. And I did that, and I swear to God, I was like the best mark hitter every single time. I was just like, I'm going to do my best, and I did. And I remember that day, they were all starving. And I was just like, man, like there was nothing around us. We were like in the middle of a parking lot somewhere in New York. And there was like a food truck in front of us. All they had like was bagels and stuff like that, but nobody had cash, and they only accepted cash. And I had $20 on me. I never bring cash with me, by the way. That day I was just like, you know what, just take cash because it's a long walk. Right, you're in New York, whatever. And I had $20 on me, and and everybody was starving. They were like, they couldn't go to lunch yet because they had to finish. And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I'm going to go to the truck. And I go to the guy, hey, I'm like, how many bagels can I get for $20? And he's like, wow, I mean, they're $1 each. And I'm like, oh, okay, you guys are actually, you know, reasonable. And he's like, yeah, you're New York. Like, bagels are popular here. And I'm like,
true,
okay.
Yeah.
So I got $20 worth of bagels with cream cheese and drinks and stuff like that. And I bring it back, and I dump the bag on their truck. And I'm like, here you go, guys. And literally they were like, and they just looked at me like, okay.
Okay, new girl. Look at the new girl looking us up.
And for me, it was something like normal. You know, I'm from Miami, hospitality. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, yeah, these people are hungry. But
that small gesture can go a long way.
In their world, I was kissing up.
Oh.
But you know what I mean? In their world, because a lot of people do that. But once they got to know me, once they got to know me, they figured
I'm
just like that. Yeah. So then I remember that day the coordinator comes and he grabs a bagel, you know, puts some cream cheese in it, sits next to me. He takes a bite out of it and he looks at me. He's like, "You're a really nice girl. Thank you for doing this." You know, the guys were hungry and stuff. I'm like, "No, man, no worries. Like, I mean, we're hungry. We go and get food. Like, it was the only place. So I grabbed you guys some bagels." He's like, "No, I really appreciate that." And then he's like, "So, how's your month looking?" And I'm like, "I'm open. I mean, I'm here as long as you need me." And he's like, cool. And he's like, how's your fighting and stuff, like your fighting skills? And I'm like, I've been practicing, I'm trained. He's like, do you have any videos? And I'm like, I do, but I mean, I could send you a pretty dope one if you give me like some time, of something more recent. And he's like, okay. And then he's like, all right, so I'll tell you this. I was only going to use you for the previs, right? Because they could hire stunt people just to do the previs, but then they hire different stunt people to do the job that the person was doing for the previs.
Yeah, I get it. Okay.
So he's like, I want to hire you for the job. Can you work next week? I'm like, I'm so down. And he's like, you're going to do the same exact thing. You're going to drive the car on set, of the Punisher. I'm like, Punisher? And he's like, yeah. And you're just going to hit that same mark all the time. You're going to have, extras running in front of you. This car is coming off. So basically that mark you were hitting is because you're wrecking. Kind of, then the Punisher's going to come kind of to the car. Like, it's going to be a whole shootout scene. And I'm like, oh, man, that's dope. So that was my first big job with the Punisher. And it was nothing crazy, nothing out of this world, but something that I would just hold so dear to my heart. Of course. Because it was my first big job. And here is this man that hardly knows me and just gave me this big opportunity.
The stunt coordinator, the guy.
The stunt coordinator. And then afterwards, he worked with me that day and he saw that, I was professional. I was just tranquila, I was just chill. I came, I was always 30 minutes before my time. I would just come, sit. I wouldn't bother anybody. I did exactly what I was told. And I behaved good around people. I communicated a lot, which he loved. And then I remember him, when we were done with that job, I flew back to Miami and he messages me again, like maybe a week later. And he's like, hey, do you have that fight reel that I asked you about? And during that time, I remember I actually got Chris involved, and I was like, hey, man, like, we need to do this fight reel, and, like, we need to, like, do, like, a dope fight scene and send it to him. And we did. We did, like, a pretty dope fight scene in my grandma's house that passed away. And I sent it to him, and I didn't hear anything back. I was like, it sucked. I mean, I put it on Instagram, and I think everybody liked it and stuff. And I'm like, I feel like we did really well. We did breakables. He went flying through a table. Like, we did a bunch of stuff, and the fight was on point. But I'm like, whatever, you never know what they're looking for. And 4 days later, his assistant messages me. He's like, hey, Yessenia, are you available to work in New York? He lists the days, and the days are like almost 2-3 weeks. And I'm just like, yes, like in a heartbeat. And he's like, cool, you start on this day. They're not telling me what it's for. I'm already assuming I know what it's for. And I'm like, okay.
Are you supposed to pay for your own travel expenses? Or at least roof and boarding?
So yes and no. Sometimes you will pay for your own and sometimes they'll pay for you. So in New York, they usually like to hire in-state stunt performers.
To avoid that
to avoid that. But, he could have found someone there. But honestly, I wasn't even going to ask. And I didn't want to. I wanted the job so bad that I was just like, I'm just flying in. I didn't care.
Right. You didn't want to.
Yeah, the money for me wasn't a thing. It was just a bonus. But normally they would fly you in and they would, if they know you're out of state, they'll be like, hey, we'll pay for your stuff. But I think he was trying to help me out. And if he would have flown someone probably out of state, they probably would have questioned him, like, why didn't you just find talent here? Mm. And I looked a lot like this actress, so I could understand why he really wanted me. And he already had trust in me. So I didn't want to put him in that position, and I was just like, I'm just going to fly in.
You said that you filmed this reel, this highlight reel of a fight scene.
Yeah.
And I know this was already a couple years back, but from there to now, what have you done formal training of, I don't know, Muay Thai, boxing, anything, or is it all really like stunt training? Because, most stunt training and fighting scenes is different from a real scene. So have you gotten any kind of formal training in any of those martial arts?
Well, definitely you still need to have a foundation and then adjust.
Of course,
to stunts. Right. I've trained in boxing, taekwondo, tricking, which was something new to me.
Tricking is on the streets with a bunch of hoes. What are you talking about?
Well, not exactly that kind of tricking, but
okay.
So basically, it's like how can I explain it? It's like how would you explain tricking? So basically, it's like it's XMA. It's like cinematic taekwondo kind of.
Okay.
It's kind of like but it's like very
Point
I don't know, I'm
striking,
trying
like?
no.
Because Taekwondo is very, very point striking.
No, it's not. Oh man, I don't know exactly how to. It's flashy. It's very flashy.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, these flashy kicks that you see like in film and stuff like that, where they do these cool moves and stuff like that.
And of course, the film industry loves that. They
Oh
want
yeah,
that.
definitely.
That's part of it.
So they teach tricking out in LA, and there's some places here like in Florida too that you could learn tricking. They have actually some great trickers here too. So I had to learn, like tricking and all these fancy moves and stuff like that. And honestly, I've just picked up a little bit of everything everywhere I've gone. I don't have like one martial art that has been like my ground foundation, just because of how late I got into the industry and everything that I had to start learning.
Do you still try to sneak those in here and there? Or do you feel, not in an egotistical way, or do you feel like your foundation is good enough, it's more important to keep going into the acting part of it? Like, in other words, if you got some off time, some downtime, 2 weeks, 3 weeks till whatever, hey, I'm gonna go take some Muay Thai lessons, or hey, I'm gonna do a little bit of jiu-jitsu because that's getting a little bit more popular nowadays due to the UFC. Are you doing that, or it just really depends on what role you get?
I do that all the time. Like, for me, it's so important to because I don't just do it for the job. I do it for me. You know what I mean?
Right.
So for me, it's really important for me to keep training and be consistent with it. So I don't just do it to just be like, okay, I just need this one move, and once I'm done with it, I'm just gonna apply it to a job. No, because you lose it, So I keep training every single day, and I mean, we train like 5-6 hours a day, and we train a bunch of different stuff. So while some people are just focused on, for example, if what you do is MMA, and that's what you just train like the whole day, just different kind of mixed martial arts, we're training in a day, maybe within those 5-6 hours, we're training parkour, we're training tricking, we're training stunts, camera movement, driving. We're training a bunch of different stuff, weapons,
Right.
So, and also, in the schedule, I try to keep, organized to with it. Maybe on Monday, I'll just work on acrobatics. On Tuesday, I'll work on martial arts, and like that, you know what I mean? But I try to put as much as I could in my day, and it's a lot.
Yeah, I imagine. And I would imagine, you just posted something on Instagram. I was just fucking laughing left and right because you posted back to back to back. When you get older, everything is a grunt, a this, or that, an excuse of, you feel this, you feel that. And not only is that true as you get older, but when you're active, when you're very active, you have an active lifestyle, I can only imagine the amount of things that you are feeling on a daily basis from practicing so much. Oh, yeah. Have you gotten slightly over the injuries, like the broken ankle and any other things? Are you getting up, folks? Thank you once again for tuning in to another episode of the Black Sheep Perspective, Season 2, baby. If this happens to be your first time watching or listening, please take a quick second to hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell so that you don't miss another episode. And once again, guys, really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, everyone out there, for all the amazing support. And a big shout out to my man Hector and his entire team over there at Driver Shop USA. If you guys follow me on IG or live in this beautiful city of Miami, you'll be able to catch the dope-ass wrap job that was done to my Chevy Colorado truck. Not only did they wrap the entire truck to protect its original paint job, they then slapped on multiple high-quality logo wraps on all sides, so that I can remind those of you who are looking to tune in to the best new podcast. From boats to motorcycles to automobiles of all kinds, Driver Shop USA is continuously redefining luxury. Now let's get back to the podcast.
So, I wake up in the morning, stretch a lot. Sometimes I do forget to stretch, and then that sucks because you become really stiff. But I mean,
you said something earlier when we were off camera, when you first got here, and we were talking for a quickie. And I think it's fucking insane that you don't take any supplements.
No, I don't take any.
That's even more insane because of how much you put your body through. Is what I just think that's insane. That's insane. I don't know how you pull that
other
off.
Than vitamins, you know what I mean, and like stuff like that. I don't drink any supplements just because every time I've attempted to, even BCAAs, I get a headache. It's like my body fights anything that's not supposed to be there.
Have you got any blood work done?
I have, and it seems regular, unless they're specifically going to do blood work for something specific. Right. But everything is fine. I'm just really sensitive to anything that has to do with, taking in any supplements. Even during the time that I was competing for the NPC, I never took any supplements at all. That was just all natural. It was just based out of food. The only supplement I probably took was, to knock off the water weight.
Diuretics or something.
Yeah, diuretics. That's it.
Did your mom or both of your parents? I mean, I'm not gonna say good shape. I know they're a little bit older and they probably have Cuban habits, obviously. But is the genetics there, or are you like a recessive trait that jumped?
I think the genetics probably comes from my dad a little bit. My mom is overweight, and so is my brother. My dad, he's big into fitness, but he just likes lifting heavy weight. I could definitely say physically the genetics comes from him, of lifting weight and stuff like that. But where the monkeyness comes from, I don't know.
The monkeyness.
And I'm
oh,
very
monkey ass.
and I'm very I'm very daring and like spontaneous and adventurous, and my parents are not like that at all. They're scared of everything. They're not risk takers. Like, I'm the total opposite. Like, I'm a risk taker. I love adrenaline, adrenaline junkie. There's still some things that I'll still be like, fuck no to. But for the most part.
What is that? What are those things that, let's break down some questions. What is something that you won't do, haven't done, or are still on the fence about? And what are some of the dopest things that you have done? I mean, I'm sure skydiving, like one of those type comparisons. Give us a little bit of that.
So anything that has to do with the water, we're not friends. You know, like we're homies when there's money involved. You know what I mean? But other than that, like, we're not friends. You see what I mean?
You feel like you shark bait?
No, when here's the thing. Like, I know how to swim. I've actually recently done scuba diving and stuff like that. But I'm not a fan of the water. We're just, when it comes to money, we have an understanding. We're like, all right, I got you for this little bit. Yeah. But then after that, like, I'm not a mermaid. Like, I'm not going to go and, I just go into the ocean for a swim today or the pool. Me and the water, you know what I mean? And stunts that maybe have to do with maybe a big jump to the water, like maybe a 60-foot jump to water, stuff like that. Like, I don't see myself doing that.
Really?
Yeah.
To me, that's such an easy thing to do. It's just splash.
It's just, the water is just not my thing. And it's funny because most of the things I've said I won't do, I end up freaking doing all the time. So I'll take that back, and I won't say I won't do that, but it's not something that I really, like.
Is there any fear of heights?
No.
No?
I respect heights. I will say that. Respect in the sense of I know what I could do where I feel comfortable, and I know where I start to feel a little uncomfortable, and it's probably based on skill. You know what I mean?
I know the ocean so well. I'm a very oceanic person. Fishing it, spearfishing is. Scuba, no, because it's more challenging to go skin diving, meaning no tanks. I've had a few issues, almost drowned a couple times, all that good stuff. I also respect the fuck out of the ocean. Right. So I'm that guy where it's like, if somebody's like, yo, Wes, you down to go for a 2-hour boat drive, into deep sea fishing, blah, 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 blah. Sounds great. How's the weather? It's going to be a rough ride. We're going to go through a couple of storms, but once we get there after 2, I'm good.
Yeah.
But why? I know Mother Nature can fuck you over from one wave to another. Right. If you're not going to tell me it's clear sailings, I'm good. We don't need to do that. So I definitely get that aspect. Heights doesn't bother me at all, but I'm not jumping like what you would. Right. Have you skydived?
I have not yet, and that's actually on my bucket list for this year.
Really?
Yeah. So
Lou's like on fucking 6 jumps already. That boy's been jumping a lot lately.
Yeah.
Shout out to Lou, man. I know he's listening, man. My brother. Appreciate you putting me down when you send your mic.
Yeah. No, I haven't done it yet. Again, this is me trying to get into just a bunch of things in my life. Okay. So there's definitely a big bucket list of things that I want to do this year. I think one of the things I did really enjoy that I did recently was trapeze. Like, that was like different. It's like the whole flipping in the air and then re-grab of the bar and all that stuff. That was intense and pretty.
I saw the video you posted.
Yeah, it was,
and you did it really, really, really well, right? Didn't they?
It was my first time. Like,
yeah.
Like,
I heard the guy say it in the video. This is your first time?
Yeah, it was. Well, he was giving me instructions, and it was pretty easy to just follow. He was just like, and I'm also familiar with a lot of terms and stuff because parkour and stuff like that. I'm not scared of being in the air. Because I've done high falls and stuff like that. But it's still intimidating because, you have this, you're doing acrobatics and stuff like that in the air while falling onto this really small net. By the way, it's really small. Although it got you, but it's a little intimidating. But it was a lot of fun.
You've done a lot of suspension work, or at least a few. When I say suspension, I don't know what to call it. When you're gonna do some high flying shit, but they have this cord on you, so whether it pulls you
wire
or
work.
wire work.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah, I love wire work. I absolutely love it. It's
And
so
the
much
green screen and it makes you.
man, it's so much fun. And I actually have the weight and the height that the riggers usually like.
Tell
to
people
use.
what that is who don't know your obvious. Your
Right.
what is your stats?
So my stats.
Yeah.
I'm like well, I'm 5'2" in real life, 5'3" in Google.
Okay.
I'm 112 to 115 pounds. I vary. Brown eyes.
Stupid.
I like long walks.
Yeah. Bro, imagine that. It's funny. I'm not trying to turn the tables around, but to date, for to find somebody, you would almost think I'm a big supporter of. You need to find the closest thing to a mirror image. That's my opinion.
Right.
That doesn't mean that it won't work if you found somebody else who wasn't a stunt person. I'm not saying it won't work. I just think the closer the more you can share, the better success you would have in this relationship. And I know it must be difficult thinking, relationship wise, because, you get caught up with, I'm not saying having flings or anything with stunt people, but you guys have crazy schedules. You're all over. You have to train your ass off. You go through these mood swings.
Yeah.
You told me not that long ago, you're now back and forth to California.
Yeah.
Travels a bit. I would imagine it's pretty difficult, to attempt a serious relationship in your field. I'm sure it happens. I would think it probably happens amongst other stunt people. I don't know. But how's that? And also dealing with the male dominance that's in there.
Yeah. It's honestly very difficult, extremely, because there's months sometimes that you need to be away from your significant other. And most of the time you are surrounded by other attractive people. I mean, it's entertainment business. Everybody looks good or is fit, or especially in the stunts world. And, I'm not saying it's difficult in that sense, because, for me, I'm so concentrated on what I want in my life that I don't have eyes for that. But you still notice when someone's attractive or good looking.
Right.
But, I think that for me speaking, I try to stay just basically on my lane. It's very hard though, because you do have, a lot of men, especially in the stunt world, hitting on you and, wanting, to help you, because of other ulterior motives. And
right.
Stuff
Yeah.
like
You don't know. Are they seriously trying to help you become better? Or are they slyly hitting on you?
Which is the same, going back to the previous conversation I had about Punisher when I first got reached out, and I'm like, is this just kind of like you slipping in my DM, or are you really trying to help me out? So I always kind of like to test the waters in the sense of, okay, let's see if this person is really professional or if this person's trying to hit on me. I always give the try, but it's so unmotivating, and so you feel like dogged almost when you realize that it's not for a professional purpose. Like, I myself I work with people that are good looking, but that doesn't mean I'm going to hit on you. Like, I respect you. And, especially if I have like a significant other, loyalty in the business, I have seen that is very difficult. And I think that if you're not, if you don't stick to your motives and what you're here for, you know what I mean? And just concentrate on that, then your head's going to be somewhere else. And at least for me, I've never been, since I was little, I've always been, especially towards men, I've always been very respectful and nice, but I like to stay in my lane and them on theirs. Like, I could probably count still with one hand how many boyfriends I've had. And it's probably been maybe like 3 or 4. And these have all been long relationships, anywhere from like 7 to 4 years minimum. And that's what I like. I'm very chill and tranquila, and I'm not the type to just, okay, let's hang out like that. But in a male-dominated industry, you definitely do get a lot of men that try to break that relationship that you have, and it's happened to me.
I saw on the the few they're not documentaries, but some I was on YouTube. I'm a YouTube fanatic. I want to see real shit. I'm try to avoid entertainment type shows unless it's really really highly recommended. And again, I was like, hey man, I want to see a few stunt women and see what they say, see what their take is on the industry. So I watched several videos yesterday, and I realized I told you that there was a lot of celebrities. There was Scarlett Johansson. There was wow, you could almost be a stunt double for this woman. I don't know who she is, but you could be her stunt double. She was from shit, man. I think it was even a Marvel fucking show. Real, I'll find out what it is. Anyway, they were older. They were all older. Everybody, even the stunt women, they were all 36. Because this actress is of that age, and so do you see it in your mind? Do you see it playing out as, hey, I'm in this for the long run for all reasons? One, it can turn to just a full-blown acting gig and I can do almost all my stunts. Or even as a stunt woman, you guys do have, prolonged careers. You do have a lot more years coming your way. You said you're only 31?
32. Yeah.
32. So you still got plenty of great years, barring no, obviously, physical setbacks, no injuries.
Right.
Do you think like that? Or is your mind somewhere else with it? Are you thinking something bigger? Is there some entrepreneur angle that you're going at things?
Yeah. I don't want to be a stunt woman for the rest of my life.
Okay.
That's for sure. Reason being is because I feel like physically at some point you're not going to be the same. Can I have a very successful career in it? Definitely. I feel like I have a lot of potential, just not, ethically, because of my work ethic, but, professionally and athletically. But it's not that's not the reason why I started stunts. When I first started stunts, I started because I love acting, and I love performing, and I wanted to get into stunts to basically help me become a better performer. But then I started falling in love with the athletic part of it, and I felt like I had to concentrate on one thing to really become good at it, to then go back to what I love and why I even started. I feel like when you start focusing on a million things, you don't get anything done. And that's what I was doing in the beginning. I was focusing on modeling because I was doing modeling too during that time. I was focusing on stunts, on acting, on so many things. And I'm like, you know what? Let me focus on what I'm being called for, what I'm being respected for, what people want me for at the moment. Let me become really good at this. And I know something's going to turn out of that. And that's exactly what started to happen. So basically, my focus is, yes, stunts. I want to become the best I can. And that is my focus right now. But in the long run, I do see myself doing stunt acting roles and eventually just doing acting, which is what I love. What turns out of there, I don't know. My mind might change 3 years from now. I might want to direct. I might want to do something else. But it definitely is in the film business. And, I just want to inspire people in so many other ways, not just in film. I want to have my own nonprofit organization, which I was trying to open a few years ago, which is called Warrior Ambition, which is a tattoo that I have.
What's that about?
So basically, I wanna help people that have cancer, and people that suffer from strokes, or people, basically, the reasons for my pain, the reasons why so many of us have lost people in our lives, and I want to figure out a way to be able to help them with my success. So I've never wanted my success for me. I wanted my success so that I could be able to become known enough and a big enough name so that I could do something with it and actually help the bigger cause. The bigger cause is not to become, a legendary stunt woman or actress and then be in the history books as that. No, like, I want to be bigger than that. I want to be known as someone that, helped this world in some way and inspired people to overcome things that I've had to,
Were you able to actually launch the organization yet?
I know I started, but then afterwards, life started to happen and I wasn't able to.
Yeah, obviously a lot of
things. You have to
yeah.
invest so much time in that alone. And then I found myself trying to invest so much time in a bunch of different things. And I'm like, let me just get organized and let me build myself first, because nobody's going to respect you or even want to donate or help. Or how are you going to inspire people if you're of no name, if you're nobody? And that's the truth. It's harsh, but it's true.
It's like these 22-year-old influencers online trying to give motivational speeches. Motherfucker, you haven't been through shit. Let me see you on your ass and
exactly.
hating life and bounce back, and then you really,
right.
You have more credibility,
Yeah.
so I get that.
So there's where I'm at. I need life. I need more life in me in order for me to be like, you know what? Like,
Well
I can
said.
make an impact.
Okay.
So, but in the meantime, I'm still making an impact with what I can. You know, like I've been involved with a children's hospital. I would dress up as a superhero and just show up to kids' hospital and just talk to them, sit out, and just hang out with them. Because a lot of times they don't have anybody to hang out with. And some of them are even abandoned by their own family because they have to work and they can't maintain a kid that is sick. Because as a parent or as a family member, when you have a child or an adult or a person or that becomes sick, your life, you don't have a life anymore. Your life becomes that person, and you become a caretaker, and that's your life from that moment forward. And I understand what they went through, just because I familiarize a lot with what I went through with my own family, and you know, there's a lot of kids that I try to help, you know, in that route. And I'm a big humanitarian. And, you know, I've helped a lot of homeless people too. And I donate monthly to different causes and stuff like that. And that's my ultimate purpose, to be able to be bigger than life, bigger than what I do. And kind of like what Leonardo DiCaprio does. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he's a well-known actor, but his purpose is so much
It's a huge
bigger.
humanitarian. Huge.
His purpose is so much greater than his acting. You
Yeah,
know what I
he's
mean?
using his platform and trying his best to
And that's what
to
I'm
help
trying
the
to do.
world out, and I definitely respect the hell out of that.
Right. And
And
that's where
so
I'm
that's
at.
one of your ultimate
Yes.
goals
Yeah.
going into that long stretch, that second stretch.
Yeah.
But during this other part of your life, which you're still heavily in, you have setbacks, and I know that Corona had to set you back in some shape or form. Did it?
Right.
Did that hurt you guys? I mean, fuck, the movie industry got crippled, right? Kind of.
Right.
You know, now they're bouncing back because they realize it's not going to be all about theaters, but we still got to keep the action going.
Well, it's pretty crazy because in the beginning of last year, actually in February, when Corona was kind of starting already, but it wasn't like really, you know, nothing was still shut down. I got hired for my first movie, which was Dune, with Jason Momoa and Zendaya and, you know, all these big name actors. And I got hired for that job to do motion capture. So basically, for those of you that don't know what motion capture is, it's I don't know if you've seen people with the dressed in black with like little dots everywhere, and then they basically record your capture, you know, your
Yep.
motion and everything that you do, and basically when you watch cartoons or you watch, you know, like certain video games and stuff like that, you know, the way that
The animation comes out
the
so realistic is
animation,
because they got it from.
right, they got it from a person.
Got you.
Right. So I did motion capture for Dune.
That's all green screen, right? Or no? The motion capture isn't?
No.
No?
I
Okay.
mean, yeah, you do. At least where we did it, it was in green screen.
Okay.
But basically, I had that amazing opportunity to train in LA with one of the biggest stunt gyms there, which is called 8711 Action Design, and basically there is where they have trained, where they train Keanu Reeves, all the Avengers, you know, all the big movies, Atomic Blonde,
Blonde, yeah.
all the big movies
Great movie, by the
have
way.
gone through there. Yeah, all the movies have gone through there, and all the stuntmen were from there. So I got the opportunity to train with amazing stunt performers and an amazing coordinator. And it was a whole nother jungle there because these people have their own stunt religion, meaning the way they move, the way they talk, the way they do everything is just, you got to have heart. Like your mind, there's a certain point where as an athlete or as a performer, you're all mind, and then there's another part of you where you step up that game and now you're just all heart. Why? Because your mind ain't gonna get you to that level anymore. So that's what they're all about. And I remember training like 4 to 5 different martial arts there daily. And I know it was for like about maybe 2 to 3 months, training 8 hours a day, nonstop. And we were training to be Fremens. Fremens is basically in the movie. We are like sand warriors. You know, we pop out of the sand and we fight. What was the name of the other? Sadakar. Yeah, we fight Sadakar, which they're more like the soldiers. You know, and our movement had to be very animalistic, you know. And they hired us because of a parkour background that I had, which parkour led me into that. You know what I mean? Something that my dad here in Miami was like, oye, para de hacer eso, que te vas a romper la cabeza, right? And I'm like, Dad, now look, I'm in a movie.
Exactly.
So, you know, everything leads to something else. And that has always was my hope, even going back to that question that, you know, you previously asked me. A lot of the times when you get in that time frame that you get lost and you're like, now what? Like, I don't feel like my life is going anywhere. But as long as you continue, something is going to lead to something, or something that you did in your past is going to help you with your future. And I would have never thought in a million years that I would have been involved in such a huge movie, working with, you know, such amazing people. And then, I mean, before that, I actually had the opportunity to become part of a TV show, Ultimate Tag on Fox. And also that was because of my parkour background.
Really?
And they found me somewhere on the internet.
Are you your own manager now? Or you don't have a manager yet?
I'm my own manager,
you know?
yeah.
Most stunt people don't have managers, right? They leave that for the...
yeah, we don't have
for the
managers.
union, I mean, you know, kind of.
Right. Well, also, I feel like the stunt people that might have managers maybe might be influencers too. You know what I mean? But I like to be my own manager, just because I'm not very trustworthy of, you know, other people, and also
totally understood. Yeah.
I haven't been presented the opportunity where I would be like, okay, I feel like I need one, or why do I need you? You know what I mean? Like, what can you do for me? Because at some point, sometimes I'm just like, man, this is a lot. Like, I wish I had an assistant or someone to help me so I could boost and help my career even more.
I say that all the time, and I'm not really just saying that. Like, but it's because of my flaws as well. I hate doing little Instagram posts.
Right.
I hate doing this little editing to make this, 1 minute clip like I'll do for our podcast.
I don't know, it'll take you so long sometimes.
And then I don't got the biggest fingers, but, you know, all this little, you know, moving and fucking, show me the action. What do I got to do? Let me put in the action. Let me put in the work. If you were, hey, Wes, I need help on the yard, I'll help you chop that tree down and fucking chuck it. I got you. If you're gonna say, hey, can you help me plant these little flowers? No, that's too tedious. No, give me the big rough shit.
Yeah.
Question, Yessie, going in and out of these, you know, different roles that were offered to you, no matter how deep it was, how big it was, do you remember, can you recite certain fangirl moments where you came across whoever, actor, actress, I don't know what, where you were like, holy shit, that was fucking so-and-so?
You know what? I never thought that I would come across that moment, because I've worked with some big name actors, and it's kind of like, you know, you're so surrounded by celebrities all the time that it's almost normal, you know? And I remember in LA, actually, it happened recently, in 8711, as I was training and we were getting ready to go to lunch, and we're breaking for lunch, and I'm walking out. Coming in through the warehouse, I see Keanu Reeves. And I see this man, and I'm like, nah, it's probably a stunt double, man. He looks a lot like him. This is what I'm thinking, because, I mean, this is a stunt gym. So you're thinking everybody's someone's double.
Right.
And I'm like, man, no, that's not. I'm like, that's him. Like, it looks just like him, too. Like, it's not, you know, some people look different on TV than they do in person. Mm-hmm. This man, they took him from the TV, and they just put him, like, in person. Like, he looks just like him. And I see him walking through the gym, and I'm like, holy shit, that is Keanu. I'm like, that's Keanu Reeves. That's Keanu Reeves. And I'm like, act normal. I'm like, wait, why am I not acting normal? I'm like, oh shit. Like, I've never been like,
I'm having a moment.
I'm having a fangirl moment. And I didn't even grow up being a huge fan of him or anything like that. But I did watch all his movies, because my aunt.
We all did.
Yeah, my aunt was a big fan, and she even called her son Keanu because of him. So, you know, like, he's been around in the family where we admire him. And seeing him in person, it was kind of like, you know, I didn't just have like a fangirl moment, but I had a moment to myself where I was like, I can't believe I'm here right now.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like
you didn't make it, but you feel like, wow, I'm here.
You feel proud because not only, you didn't just see him in a random grocery store or something like that. You saw him in a place where you're training, where he trains.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I'm just like, man, like, this is amazing. And it meant so much to me to just see him because I'm like, you just said so much back and you said nothing. Although I kind of walked by him and I'm like, all right, rub. Oh, sorry. Like my arm hit you a little bit. But, that's the only fangirl moment I had. And I think the other moment I had, it wasn't so much seeing a person, but it was years ago. Again, like I said, I write everything that I want to happen. I wrote that I will one day work for Paramount or Warner Brothers. And I wrote that down on a piece of paper. And that was 7 years ago. I went to LA, like every other person that goes to LA, kind of finding their way. And, I don't know. I went for 2 weeks. I don't know what I was thinking. Like, like a big movie's going to show up out of nowhere. I don't know. And I went to Paramount to do the little tour thing that they do, where they take you around and they show you the sets and where everything happens. And in 1987, this movie was filmed in this studio, etc. And then afterwards, I remember the lady that was giving us a tour. She's like, "Well, if you touch the gates in the beginning of the studio, if you touch this gate, it says it'll give you good luck and like anything you wish for, and usually that luck brings you back here." And then I'm like, "Oh, really? I'm like, man, I really need this luck." And I touched
that shit in a
chokehold. I touched the shit out of it. I was
that
like,
motherfucker in a chokehold.
Like, I did a bunch of. I'm like, all right, so. I did that, whatever. And then 7 years later, I got that job with Ultimate Tag. And I remember that moment being so surreal because they first tell you the name of the show. Then they send you the address. And then as I'm putting in my GPS and I'm like, holy shit, this is
Studio.
Well, this is Warner Brothers.
Sorry,
it was
Warner Brothers.
I'm like, this is Warner Brothers. And I'm like, holy crap. And as I'm going through security and you see him with his little Warner Brothers, I'm like, I'm super excited about even the smallest thing, like the security. I'm just like, oh my God, security.
I'm like, where the cartoon motherfuckers
like,
run around? There you go. I'm like, we got raised with that. We got brainwashed with that shit. I'm just ready to see some fucking little rabbits run.
Right? And that was me at that moment. And I'm like,
but it was surreal for you, and it was a great feeling.
It was an amazing feeling. This Miami girl with big dreams, been through so many struggles, so much pain, to these studios. You know what I mean? And I remember walking in, and they're talking to you about everything that's gonna be happening, what they expect from you, where the studio, what's gonna get shot, the obstacles, everything. A lot of information at that moment. And I remember just not being able to concentrate on anything they're saying because I'm still like in my head about how the hell am I in here right now? Like, and honestly, you do get a moment where to be straight up, I did have a moment where I was like, do I even deserve to be here? I got that moment. You know what I mean? Where I asked myself that. And it's not more like, do I deserve, like I don't deserve it. It's more like you can't believe you're there. So like, holy shit, I deserve this. Like, I don't know. And I remember looking at every studio has like this big plaque on the wall that puts states all the names of all the movies that have worked in that studio. And the studio we were on was the biggest studio in Warner Brothers. And that studio had the Titanic, The Hangover. I mean, The Hangover's more recent, but they had huge movies in that studio that I'm like, I can't believe I'm about to shoot in the biggest studio in Warner Brothers where they shot the Titanic.
Fucking awesome, man. What's up, folks? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Black Sheep Perspective, Season 2. If this happens to be your first time watching or listening, please take a quick second to hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell so that you don't miss another episode. Once again, thank you everyone out there for all the support.
Yeah, so they had Batman Forever, Titanic, Hangover, I don't know, like a bunch of big names, the Looney Tunes, and they were shooting the biggest. There's where they shot these big films, and it was the biggest studio in Warner Brothers.
What an awesome moment!
And here I am in front of the studio, this little person, this little 5'2", 115-pound person.
5'3" on Google,
right? 5'3" on Google, and with these big dreams that are finally becoming a reality, and she doesn't even know how. And all she did was just keep going. She kept showing up. She just kept fighting through the pain, through the letdowns, through the failures, through the no's. And that's how you achieve success. You fight through all that because that's always going to happen. you're never going to always be motivated. Man, motivation, I could tell you how many times in my day I feel motivated to do anything. You know, a lot of the things come from self-inspiration, discipline, and my motive, which is the biggest thing. You know your why, and you're always going to find a reason to keep pushing forward. And after that moment, I shot that TV show. I got so many fans, so much love. I mean, I started getting hit up left and right from different, like interview here, interview with Fox, interview. It was just so much, you know what I mean? And even still getting used to it, I mean, like I couldn't believe that was happening to me. And I know I'm just in the beginning of my career.
Right,
I'm just in the beginning, you know.
I was almost gonna take the mic from you and say that this is all just preliminary, right?
Right. I'm like scratching the surface right now.
Right.
And I'm just like, man, like this is what I've been fighting for. And then this kind of reminds you, it's like when you have those moments in life when you're kind of like, why am I even doing this? Because you keep getting injured, you keep getting hurt mentally, physically. You're going through life, such as breakups, because I went through a bad one where breakups, you lose. Yeah, I'm like, I almost broke my finger on this
right there.
Won't mention any names.
Yeah.
But like breakups, you lose people you love. And not just anyone. You lose loved ones that are close to you.
And you question because your job is taking so much time from you that you couldn't spend with these people that you lose.
Exactly.
And you're like, damn, am I really making the right decisions?
Right,
here? Like
right. There's so many questions in life. There's so many things that you need to battle mentally. And on top of that, going through the disorder, anxiety disorder, which with time actually got better because of putting so much on my plate where I triggered my anxiety so damn much that anxiety was like, you know what? I don't want this bitch no more. I'm going.
Yo, bitch, you are too calm. I am not with it.
Like,
I need to find me somebody else.
I need a weak one. Like, you just, you be fighting back too much.
Where'd you get all this strength from? Shit. That's a great way of looking at it. That's awesome.
So basically, that's where I was at.
You had mentioned a lot of self this, self that, self this, and I'm a huge fan of it. And I used to have this boss. I'm not trying to talk down on him. I've taken shots at him before, but it's not about that. But I used to have this boss. He was this guy that had to listen to. He literally had to wake up to some Les Brown motivational speech, some Will Smith motivational speech. It was always something, and he made it big effort to try to send us those clips all the time, the coaches chat that we had. And I get it. I get it. I'm not trying to hate on it. But if the world was fucking listening now, I would tell them, hey, at the end of the day, you need to try not to rely on anybody. You need to tell yourself what needs to be done. You need to motivate yourself. You don't need a Les Brown or some speech from some motivational. Those are inspiring. Those help. Those strike nerves on people who otherwise didn't. You never had a fire lit under your ass. Yeah, you might need that. But I think when you go through the fires like you have and you experience, the rough times that go through chasing a career that's so passion based, you need to find a way to motivate yourself. Right. You really do, and you need to think about it way deeper than what somebody else is telling you. And I love that I've been hearing that from you so many times that you said it, because it is true. It definitely is true. And you need to remind yourself that, not that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but it will come to fruition if you keep grinding and hustling, and you're just seeing the beginning parts of it. And, and that's awesome.
Right.
What are you trying to tell younger girls out there who are listening, watching? And when I say younger, you started late, so it doesn't have to be like, I'm not saying teenagers, but females who are attempting a career in a male-dominant, position, in a male-dominant occupation, who are going to have to go through all these, ups and downs. What do you tell them to make them feel like it's all worth it?
The first thing I would say is to mute the world. Okay, and that's the hardest thing to do. It's easier said than done. I get it. There's been times where I say it to myself and I have to repeat it. But keeping that in mind, mute the world. Know your purpose and why you're doing what you're doing. Okay, you can't just start doing something just for the F of it because I saw somebody on Instagram do it. It looked cool. No, you got to know why you're doing what you're doing. Why? Because there's where the respect is going to come from. So people are going to respect you if you respect yourself. even being in a male-dominated industry, I have yet, maybe out of the 7-8 years I've been in it, I've maybe been disrespected twice. And that was because literally they send me something unexpected. Not because I wheeled them into that kind of conversation or I put myself in that position. There will be many times where you don't even put yourself in that position. And like I said, things like that will show up.
Right.
But I think that having a business background helped me understand how to treat others that disrespect me. And a lot of the times, many of us don't understand how to rebuttal or how to react when somebody disrespects you. Like, right off the bat, you just want to go and fuck their ass up, right? Like I used to do back in school.
Right.
And that would resort in nothing. So I think the best way to kill someone is with kindness.
Agreed.
With respect. Show them what they're not giving you so that they start learning at least, right? Because if someone's not going to, learn themselves, then you got to teach them. And you teach them by being the example. And a lot of the times I've been disrespected, I either just, I either block them or, I tell them, this is very disrespectful. I try to make them feel demeaned, in a very professional way.
Right.
And
just make them feel like a tiny little fucking.
Exactly. I don't tell them, oh, what the fuck? How dare you? Like, who the fuck do you think No, because you're yourself talking like a trashy person. So that's how they're going to treat you. You have to make them feel like, oh man, I feel like I just sent this video to my daughter. That's how you need to make them feel like shit. And that's what I would do. You know what I mean? And I got really good at that growing up, working different kind of jobs. And for young girls watching, I would definitely say, surround yourself with not just the people that you want to, not just like the person you want to become. You need to surround yourself with professional people. But I would definitely say that starting, from the bottom is never a bad thing. Okay. For example, I feel if I would have just gotten into the industry without having a previous background in business and retail and in all of these different things, maybe I wouldn't have known how to respond or how to be on time or the importance of certain things that have actually helped me with my success.
They built your work ethic.
Exactly. Build your work ethic, and the way to do that is by just become involved with anything and everything you can. Don't be scared, and stay humble. Stay humble to, okay, I ain't got money, but if I need to start here, then start here, because that job is going to teach you something that when you become a professional, you're going to need that. And trust me, you don't know how many times I've gone back and been like, who am I glad that I was, like a part of that, or that I worked as a human resource person or medical billing or back in Best Buy, whatever. You know what I mean? I worked for the business side of Best Buy, which is Best Buy for Business, and I had to deal with a lot of men at that time. It's almost like life was putting me in those positions
little
purposely,
by little,
like
teaching you,
building me.
Yeah.
And I had to work with a lot of men because I had to a lot of the people that buy from Best Buy in bulk are usually men, and they're usually from other countries, and they see a pretty girl and they're just like, oh, Americanita, let's, and a lot of the times I would come across men that were really disrespectful and would even tell me, I don't want a woman attending me, I want a man. And I would just be like, okay, that's fine. Let me find you someone. And you got to respect their thoughts. And I would. And I would find someone. But then that someone will refer me because I knew more than him. You know what I mean? Why did that happen? Because I trained. Because I respected myself and I respected others. So those other people are seeing that. You know what I mean? And no matter what you're involved in, as long as you work your ass off and stay in your own lane and mute the world, you will become really successful. And and at some point, yes, you're always gonna have disrespectful people around, no matter how professional you are. But you're gonna understand how to mute them or how to basically make them feel like shit so that they don't make you feel like crap. And just basically that,
I think also if I can add to it, even if you don't need Yessenia to be your motivation, your inspiration to do what she did and go through this and go through that. And that's understandable. Maybe you're already in your lane, and that's cool too. But understand what women like you go through. Have a better understanding through this podcast and through what you've explained to us, what women go through going into any field. Because, women's rights were just what? How long ago? Not that fucking long ago. You guys are still fighting your way into a male dominant world to earn your spot. And I love it. I'm so against double standards, and I hate it. I find myself arguing with guys very often because I'm like, nah, let her get hers, let her do. So if you're not trying to follow her footsteps, at least acknowledge it and support it. And that goes for guys and women. We know that women should support it, obviously. You guys are on the same team, but to all the men, listening as well, support these women. When you see a woman attempting to be a firefighter, a cop, a stunt woman, anything that's very male dominant, like, yo, you sure you can handle this? Show some extra fucking respect. Show some extra support. Push them. Matter of fact, tell them, hey, I appreciate you. I know for you to get to where you're at, that was extra hard. I want to encourage people to do that. Show support. It goes such a long way. Look who your biggest support was and what it did for you and your grandparents. Right. And that was the backbone of so much to get to where you're at, even to the extent of the cancer part having such a role in your life that now you want to come back full circle and try to help with that cause. So, the support game is, I think people lack way too much support. It drives me nuts as a podcaster trying to do my thing as well. You're liking every fucking celebrity shit, every piece of shit rapper's whack-ass song. You're posting just to post a fancy meal that you'd even pay for. You barely got $20 to afford it. You're going so extra for all the wrong reasons when you should just do a little bit of effort towards showing support to these local businesses who are struggling, people like ourselves who are just trying our best to continue growing in our careers and going to a better place, especially when we've had our downfalls and been through our struggles. I hope people see this, watch this, hear your story, and they want to support a little bit better. Yeah. That definitely, because I definitely get that from you, and I love to hear struggles. I really do. I'm nothing wrong with, hey, if you were born into a silver spoon, good for you. If your parents did what they did and now you're in this great position, good for you.
Right.
But I think when you struggle, when you hit rock bottom and you bounce back from that, you're a special human being. You're a special human being, and I like to get those people on the podcast, and you're definitely that, by all means, Yessenia.
Thank you.
People need to follow you. People need to know some type of details and all that stuff so they can get connected with you. What is it, some way that everybody can connect with you?
Yeah, anyone that has any questions, especially in regards to stunts, I know we didn't get too much into it, but you guys have any questions, how to get into it, or any questions at all, feel free to contact me on my Instagram, Yessenia Cossio Official. I also have a website, my first and last name, yesseniacossio.com. Also Facebook, Yessenia Cossio. Everything is pretty simple. It's just my first and last name. Just get it right.
YESSENIACOSSIO.
Yes.
Okay, for those of you guys.
Yeah, I'm really friendly. I'm really helpful. So I know some people tell me, oh, I feel intimidated writing like to people. It's like, don't, bro. You're typical. Just I'm a Miami girl. Just trying to make it and just living life and love helping people. So
you have an amazing energy about you. Felt it from day one. You were always responsive with me on Instagram once Lewis put us together. By the way, once again, shout out to Lewis Fernandez for making this happen, putting us together, linking us up. That's our boy. Go follow him as well. Juan Wick. Juan Wick.
He's amazing.
Yeah, he is. Guys, show your support. Make sure you go follow Yessenia. Let's follow her career. Let's see what push it. If you got any connections, you might have some leads. You might know somebody looking for a role or something. And then you say before, you never know what it might be. I mean, this is Miami. I know it's not LA or Cali, but
right.
We keep that in mind. If you put a seed in somebody's mind, you never know what it can come from it. So
I'm always down to help out my locals and people from Miami. I always said it doesn't matter where I go or where I get to, I'm gonna be like Pitbull from the 305, born and raised.
That's what's up. He just had a birthday go by too. Happy birthday to Pitbull, man. 40 years old, doing amazing things. Yessenia, thank you so much for coming to the podcast. It's been an honor to have you on. Hope we maintain communication, maintain some friendships. I want to see you do big things. I think that you will for sure. And like we said, you're just starting. You're just barely scratching the surface. Yep. So we got some big things to see. We're going to see you on the screen. Oh, she was on my podcast. Well, that bitch won't even answer my text anymore. Fucking A.
One of my next goals, though, I got to say really quick, is when we do season 2 of Ultimate Tag, I got to take JJ Watt Dale. He got to know. Like, he got to know what that means, though.
JJ Watt?
Yeah, JJ Watt.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Like,
You guys know who JJ Watt is, one of the best defensive football players ever. The Watt family are amazing. You know there's 3 of them, right?
yeah, I know.
All 3 of them are in the fucking NFL.
All 3 of them were hosting the show.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
They all hosted
all the
it.
brothers.
Get the
So,
fuck
like,
outta
I
here.
got to get them to be like, yo, dale. Like,
Were you trying to
I
teach
have
them
to,
that on
bro.
the show?
Yes, but this time I didn't get them on camera. But on the second one, like, I'm going to be like, all right, we got to say this. Like,
Time
we
to
got to do
spice
it
it
for
up.
Miami people, bro.
Do you
Come
have
on.
an actual date for that coming up yet or no?
There's no actual date. I know they've spoken about it and they want to do it, but they have not yet. Fox has not released any information about it to us. But as soon as it's out, I'm definitely going to be posting about it. And in the meantime, I'm just training for it and just getting ready.
Awesome. All right, guys. Hey, Yessenia, Cossio, make sure you go follow her, show your love. Stay tuned for our next podcast. Appreciate all the support. Love every one of you guys. Peace.